After finishing their fights, Allan and the other directly ascended to the 50th floor of the Heavens Arena. Several people were on there handing over the tickets given to them by the referee. In the Heavens Arena, you get a bonus on each fight below the 200th floor. Every winner on the 50th floor can get 50,000 jenny as a reward. And the higher the floor, the more money they received. According to Killua, he reached the 190th floor the last time, and he received about 200 million jenny. With such a huge bonus, even Allan was excited. 200 million jenny isn't a small sum. Allan, Gon, and Killua arrived at the waiting area for the fighters on the 50th floor, while Hancock was invited to the staff's audience area since she wasn't a participant. Many participants looked quite fearsome, and they even released their killing intent without holding back. Allan and the others didn't feel anything because they already know how to restrain their aura, and the weak killing intent being released didn't bother them in the slightest. People who can't control themselves may seem strong to ordinary pedestrians, but they were just an empty shell to an expert. Soon, Allan and the others were called for their fight. Killua's opponent was a middle-aged man named Zal. Killua didn't bother with his opponent and directly chopped him on the neck from behind, intending on knocking him out, but to his surprise, Zal was stunned and didn't faint. Killua quickly used his assassination technique and once again appeared behind Zal and chopped again. This time, he used about 1/3 of his power, which should be enough to knock Zal out. But to his shock, Zal didn't fall, and at this time, Killua realized that Zal was using Nen to defend against his attacks. Although Killua didn't learn Nen yet, he knows that Nen can improve power and defense since he fought with Gon last time. Killua looked at him and said, "Do you think that I can't knock you out because you're using Nen?" After saying this, Killua quickly rushed towards Zal, who couldn't react in time to Killua's speed. Killua almost used all of his power this time, chopping Zal on the back of his neck. Zal's bones cracking sound echoed as he fell to the ground. "Damn, kid." Zal was unwilling. He didn't understand why he lost while Killua didn't know how to use Nen. Killua realized that although Zal could use Nen, he wasn't as good as Gon. In other words, Zal wasn't close enough to be a match to Killua. This also made him want to learn Nen even more. It was now Gon's turn, and his opponent was a Nordic giant. Gon seemed like a small cat in front of a tiger. He was a little bit frightened but got over it when the fight started. The giant threw a punch at Gon, and the latter didn't avoid it. Instead, he punched back. Gon's fist seemed pitifully small compared to the giant's fist. However, the tiny fist's power was terrifying. As soon as the fists collided, the giant clutched his arms and backed away in disbelief. The audience was stunned. Unexpectedly, the little kid was so powerful. The giant once again slammed his other fist toward God. Gon punched back, and the giant's entire arm made a crisp bone-cracking sound as it directly shattered. Gon won the fight smoothly, and now it was Allan's turn. Allan's opponent was a young boy in a white karate uniform, who seemed younger than Gon and Killua. Allan was a little surprised seeing him as he knew who it was. It was Zushi. Unexpectedly, "You're my opponent," Allan laughed. "Do you know me?" Zushi was a little puzzled. "No, it's the first time we met," Allan replied. "Okay, please advise," Zushi said politely. Allan nodded and said, "I will." Zushi heard this and said, "Please don't underestimate me, or you will regret it." Allan wasn't underestimating Zushi. After all, he knew that this kid already learned Nen at this time. Sure enough, as soon as the fight started, Zushi wrapped Nen around his body directly. Allan could see the layer of Nen wrapping around Zushi, but it was pretty weak. Allan directly appeared in front of Zushi, who was taken aback, as he couldn't react. Allan just lightly chopped Zushi on the head, making the latter fall, clenching his head in pain. How is this possible? You hit me gently, but it is so powerful." Zushi couldn't believe what happened. Allan just stood in front of Zushi and said to him, "You are too weak." Zushi was defeated. He was utterly defeated. When he walked out of the ring, Zushi was extremely frustrated. Allan's words still echoed in his ears. He doubted whether his effort so far was for naught. Zushi. Zushi heard the gentle voice of his master. Wing was wearing black trousers, a white shirt, and round glasses. It seems like he didn't have time to arrange his clothes and went out a little messy. Wing-sensei, half of your shirt is hanging out again. Zushi reminded his master. Sorry, I just came out of the bathroom. Wing hurriedly arranged his clothes and looked at Zushi. Wing-sensei, sorry, I lost, Zushi said dejectedly as he couldn't look into Wing's eyes. I saw it. Zushi, don't feel dejected. Your opponent was way stronger than you are. You didn't have a chance to win against him, and I don't blame you because of this. Zushi raised his head and said, really? Yeah. Wing nodded. He saw Zushi's match, and although Allan didn't use much power, he could clearly see how strong the latter was. Wing-sensei, that person was so powerful, he just used one blow to defeat me, and even though I used all of my power, I couldn't do anything. Zushi said with fear. Moreover, that person said that I'm weak. I'm really weak, Wing-sensei. Wing pushed his glasses and said, Zushi, calm down. You're not weak. Compared to most people your age, you are a genius. It's just that person isn't at the same level as you, so he isn't wrong when he said you are weak compared to him, which means you just need to practice harder from now on. After winning the matches, Killua, Gon, and Allan run into Zushi and Wing in the corridor after receiving the money. Zushi looked at Allan, and the latter said, hello, what a coincidence. Wing-sensei, that him, Zushi said. I know. Wing nodded at Zushi and said to Allan, hello, I'm Wing, Zushi's teacher. Allan smiled and said, my name is Allan. I fought against Zushi today. I hope he doesn't mind my words. Wing said, Allan-san, you're also a Nen master, right? Yeah. Allan nodded. Wing asked, is this the first time you came to the Heaven Arena? That's right. Allan nodded and introduced Gon, Killua, and Hancock behind him. He's Gon, that's Killua, and that's my fiancé. Wing's gaze fell on Hancock. He was taken aback for a bit before saying, Allan-san's fiancé is really breathtaking. You really are blessed. After saying this, Wing's eyes fell on Gon and Killua, then pushed his glasses and said, I have seen you two fight. You performed very well. Then his gaze was fixed on Killua. Killua, from your fight previously, you're an assassin, right? Killua shrugged and said, yeah, I'm indeed one, and a professional one at that. Then looking at Gon, he said, Gon, from your fight before, you learned Nen, right? Gon nodded and asked, Wing-san, from your words, you are also a Nen user, right? Wing pushed his glasses and said, well, yes. Gon asked, Wing-san must be very strong then, right? Haha, I'm not that strong, Wing replied modestly. By the way, Gon, can I ask how long have you been learning Nen, and how much did you learn? Wing asked curiously. Allan taught me Ten, Zetsu, Ren, and Hatsu, the basics of Nen. Wing was surprised, have you already learned them all? It seems that your talent is quite good. No, it's just that Allan teaches well. Gon, who is rarely praised, touched the back of his head in embarrassment. Wing nodded and said, of course, a good teacher has a great influence on a student. After saying this, Wing looked at Zushi and said, I'm sorry, I have been teaching you for more than half a year, and you've yet to grasp the Nen of Flame. I'm really ashamed. Hearing this, Zushi said, Wing-sensei, please don't blame yourself. If you want to blame someone, it's me, who doesn't have any talent and learns slowly. Zushi. Wing-sensei. The master and student hugged each other, which seemed touching, while Allan thought of something else entirely. Are they the reincarnation of Guy and Lee? Killua sighed and said, oh, you all know about Ni, but I haven't learned it yet. Allan chuckled, Killua, when we reach the 200th floor, I will keep my promise and teach you Nen. Really? Killua's eyes lit up. Of course, did I lie to you before? Allan said. Then it's settled. I will definitively reach the 200th floor very quickly. Killua was exceptionally motivated. Wing pushed his glasses and said, "If Allan-san doesn't teach you, I can teach you too, Killua." Hearing this, Killua was stunned for a moment. He didn't understand why Wing was being this good to him, but he still said, "Thank you, Wing-san, but I still hope that Allan would teach me." "It's okay, as long as you learn then, it doesn't matter who is the one who taught you," Wing said as he didn't mind being rejected. Allan thought of something and said, "By the way, Wing-san, are you a professional hunter?" "Yes." Wing nodded. "I know you guys. You are the candidates from the 287th Hunter exam. You're currently very famous in the association. Since 8 candidates passed that exam and got a hunter license, and was referred as the Golden Generation by Chairman Netero." After exchanging a few words, Allan took Allan and Gon to continue climbing the Heavens Arena. Each fight, they can climb 10 floors before they reach the 200th floor. After winning on the 50th floor, Gon, Allan, and Killua received 60,000 jenny each. After that, Allan and the other two continued to fight and win successfully till the 90th floor. Their matches were fast since they didn't waste time and directly knocked out their opponent, and they have yet to encounter a powerful foe. Allan was looking forward to seeing their reaction when they see Hisoka. Hisoka is already above the 200th floor, so Allan was certain that they would meet him after reaching the 200th floor. Hisoka was most likely observing Gon and Killua from somewhere. At 4 in the evening, Allan, Gon, and Killua reached the 100th floor. According to the rules, contestants who reach the 100th floor can get a private room for free. However, if they lose even once, you will fall back to the 90th floor. Those who can climb to the 100th floor are somewhat strong, and to remain there, they will do their best to fight. They won't show mercy to their opponents. Since it was late, the three of them decided to stop climbing today and continue tomorrow. Although they are on the same floor, their rooms weren't close to each other, so each went to his room to rest. Since they each had a room, Allan took Hancock over to his room, saving accommodation costs. It has been months since Allan summoned Hancock to the Hunter x Hunter world, and she was already used to living with Allan. And even though she was disobedient at the start, she was now obedient and no longer arrogant when dealing with Allan. Allan no longer forced her to stay here and gave her control to decide whether she wants to stay here or not. After being in this world for a few months, Hancock became interested and was no longer in a hurry to return. The next day, after having breakfast, Allan and the other two continued climbing the tower. On this day, Allan, along with Gon and Killua, reached the 150th floor and won a lot of money. This continued the third day as well, and on this day, they reached the 190th floor. Allan's fights were concluded the fastest as he only needed one attack to end the battle, which gave him the nickname One Punch Man. In the Heavens Arena. In the Heavens Arena, a strong contestant will attract the audience's attention and become a celebrity. When Allan's match, the audience would mourn his opponent before the fight starts. Although Gon and Killua performed really well, their opponent became stronger and stronger, and they were no longer effortless. Even so, they gained a great response from the audience as the rising stars. They were young and strong, so of course, they are popular. When they get into the ring, the audience will call their names and cheer them. Killua was embarrassed by this, but Gon felt very good about it. After reaching the 190th floor, Allan didn't immediately rush to the 200th. Gon and Killua reached the 190th floor a week later after Allan. They performed very well, it was slightly beyond my expectations. Allan saw Hisoka looked fascinated. "Are you residing on the 200th floor?" Allan asked. "Well, I was here a few years ago, and I'm a frequent visitor," Hisoka replied truthfully with a playful expression. "Are you going to meet Gon and Killua on the 200th floor?" Allan asked again. "Well, it seems like I can't hide anything from you," Hisoka replied. Allan nodded and said, "The 200th floor is the line between Nen Masters and ordinary contestants. Are you going to use baptism on them? Hisoka's face changed. You even know about this? Have you been to the 200th floor? I didn't reach there yet, but I know about it. Allan didn't explain much. Their fundamental strength is enough, so the baptism is necessary. Even though Gon has learned Nen, his Nen isn't strong enough, so I will use this opportunity to teach him that. As for Killua, he might feel the horror of Nen since he didn't learn it yet. In short, I will give both of them a good baptism. You wait and see. After saying this, Hisoka left the corridor. After 2 days, Allan decided to go for the 200th floor, which means he had to win on the 190th floor. Since there were only 10 floors between the two, the contestant there weren't average. The foes from that point on are stronger than others and any challenger requires significant power to defeat them. Allan was already in place on top of the ring. Looking around, he could see the stand full of people waiting to see an amazing fight. Amongst the spectators, he could see Gon, Killua, and Hancock. There was also Zushi and Wing, and even Hisoka was there. This game will determine if Allan could advance to the 200th floor, which those who knew his power knew that he could get there easily. The audience voted for the most likely person to win, and 40% of the votes were in Allan's favor, while the remaining 60% were against him. It seems that most people here think that I'd lose. Although Allan was surprised that he only had 40% of the votes, this caused his curiosity to be piqued. Having 60% of the vote in favor of him winning, it seems like my opponent is strong. Allan directly glanced at his foe on the other side and saw a man wearing a purple yukata, a large saber on his waist, and an X-shaped scar on his face. This guy's name was Kentaro, and he is Allan's opponent in this match. According to the Heavens Arena's rules, contestants were prohibited from using weapons below the 200th floor. After reaching that floor, the rules become relaxed, allowing weapons. Kentaro held the blade sheath with his left hand while his right hand was on the hilt, ready to draw his sword at any second. It looks like a good sword. Allan's gaze fell on the sword on Kentaro's waist and commented. I will end this match with one blow, Kentaro said in a deep voice. You seem confident. Allan smiled and said, well, since you're going to use a sword, then I will fight with a sword as well. Kentaro frowned at Allan as the latter wasn't carrying any weapon. The sword is here. Allan said before the storage ring on Allan's finger gleamed strangely. In the next instant, Shusui appeared in Allan's hand. Allan looked at Shusui apologetically since he didn't use it for a long time now. It was an excellent opportunity to use it now. Kentaro stared at Shusui in Allan's hand, and he could tell that it wasn't an ordinary sword. As for how the sword appeared in Allan's hand, Kentaro didn't care. This sword is Shusui, and it didn't taste blood for a while. No, yours is the first in a long time. Hearing Allan's words, Kentaro snorted coldly. Arrogant fellow, you will swallow your words later. The referee used his hand to gesture the beginning of the match, and instantly Kentaro drew his sword out and slashed at Allan. Allan directly lunged at him with Shusui. In a flash of light, the two passed each other in a second. Blood dripped down on the ground from Shusui as Allan turned around and looked at Kentaro. At this time, Kentaro wasn't moving at all, and suddenly the sword in his hand snapped in two. Blood dripped from Kentaro's body, and soon it formed a large patch on the ground. Silence filled the stands. They couldn't see how the fight began or how it ended. They only saw the result of the battle. Allan wasn't affected by the silence and directly looked at the referee. You can call the match. Allan glanced at Kentaro, then at the referee. After coming out of his stunned silence, the referee directly entered the ring to talk with Kentaro. Kentaro, can you continue the fight? But Kentaro didn't respond as he remained motionless. The referee realized something and touched Kentaro's shoulder. Thud. Kentaro directly fell in the pool of his blood. His eyes widened, and his expression bewildered. The referee exclaimed, "Dead, dead?" Not only the referee but even the spectators were taken aback. Kentaro was dead. He died after a single moment by Allan's sword. When Kantaro's sword was broken, his life was taken as well. A swordsman didn't fear death since the path of a sword was filled with death. But Kantaro's expression showed shock, fear, and regret. He couldn't believe that he would die by Allan's hand. Instantly, the referee announced the winner, and Allan advanced to the 200th floor. Walking out of the ring, Gon, Killua, and the others gathered around Allan. Gon directly said, "Allan, you're cruel." Killua disagreed with Gon and said, "It was a good strike. Gon, you're native." "I'm naive?" "Well, you probably don't know Kantaro, but he wanted to kill Allan in this match." "Really?" "It's just that he wasn't as strong as Allan, so he was killed. If he were stronger, Allan would be the one dead." Gon nodded without saying anything as if he understood something. "But then again, Allan, I didn't expect you to be so good with words. How many things are you hiding?" Killua asked curiously. "Swordsmanship is just a hobby," Allan laughed. After chatting for a bit, Allan and Hancock went away, which Hancock took the chance to ask Allan, "I seem to know the sword that you have." Allan shrugged and said, "You have good eyes. This is Shusui, one of the Owazamono series. It's a product from your world." "No wonder it looks familiar." Hancock nodded and didn't question Allan from where he got it because she knew he wouldn't answer. After successfully advancing to the 200th floor, Allan directly went up to register. Each contestant had a luxury suite on this floor, but that suite will be taken back if you fall from the 200th floor. Therefore, many contestants fight desperately to maintain the luxury they got. In addition to this, there were no bonuses from now onwards. It didn't matter if the contestant won or lost. They won't receive any money. "You're finally here." After registering at the information desk, Allan saw Hisoka in the hallway. Hisoka smiled at Allan. "I watched your match and was surprised that you're a swordsman. I didn't know you have that many cards up your sleeve." Allan shrugged. "Swordsmanship is just one of my hobbies. As for other hidden cards, you will see that later." "Then I will wait," Hisoka replied and then gazed at Allan. "I look forward to that day." Allan asked, "You want to fight me?" "If there is a chance, I would be happy to, wouldn't you?" Hisoka said with interest. He's a fighting maniac who doesn't back down from a fight. Allan thought helplessly. Ding. Make a choice. 1. Agree to fight with Hisoka. Reward, increase Nen by 5,000 points. 2. Refuse to fight Hisoka. Reward, increase Nen by 3,000 points. 3. Agree to fight Hisoka and defeat him. Reward? TL, author be like interesting, but I won't tell you now, he really didn't write the reward there. Faced with the rewards, Allan naturally, mysteriously, picked the last one. After pondering for a bit, Allan said, Hisoka, I can promise to fight you, but not now. No problem, as long as you agree, there will be a time in the future. Hisoka smiled. At the moment, I'm more interested in Gon and Killua. I don't know when they will come up. Allan replied, they already applied for a match. It will be the afternoon after tomorrow. With their current power, it shouldn't be hard to advance. When the time comes, you will have to handle this. Of course, I will give them a surprise. Hisoka smiled as he narrowed his eyes. 2 days later, Gon and Killua successfully passed the 190th floor and advanced. Both of them reached the 200th floor with ease with no pressure all along. This made them feel strong and complacent. Of course, this is normal because it took them less than 2 weeks to advance to the 200th floor. The two of them took the elevator to the 200th floor to register, because according to the rules, whoever doesn't register within the specified time limit will have to go back to the first floor again. And since this was Killua's second time in the Heavens Arena, he wouldn't be able to get in again. As they walked out of the elevator, both felt a strong aura pressing them and hindering them from moving forward. Damn it, who is releasing such a frightening killing intent? As a professional assassin, Killua was far more sensitive than Gon when it comes to killing intent, and to his surprise and horror, this killing intent wasn't any weaker than Illumi's. In other words, the person releasing it was as strong as Illumi. Killua, hide behind me. Gon suddenly said. Why? Killua looked at Gon in confusion. This killing intent is laced in Nen. I can use Nen to ease the oppression. As he said this, Gon instantly released his Nen to block the killing intent. After seeing this, Killua's face changed, but he didn't hide behind Gon and instead said, Gon, go ahead and register first, Killua said. What about you, Killua? Gon asked puzzledly. I don't want to hide behind you and be protected by you. I don't want to be looked down upon by someone my age. Killua, I'm not looking down on you. The other person can use Nen, and it's disadvantageous for you to face him like this. That's why I asked you to hide behind me. Faced with Gon's kindness, Killua shook his head and said, No, I have to rely on myself. Killua is right, Gon. You should go register first. A playful voice echoed in the corridor as the strong killing intent disappeared. Killua felt relieved while Gon stopped using Nen and frowned. When he saw Hisoka appearing at the end of the corridor, Gon exclaimed, Hisoka? Killua also noticed Hisoka and was a little surprised. Haha, it's been a long time, Gon, Killua. Hisoka greeted them with a smile and then sat down with his back against the wall. Hisoka, why are you here? Gon asked. Hisoka played with his cards and said, This is the holy land of fighters, and I admire fighting the most. Isn't it normal for me to be here? Killua frowned and said, Hisoka, you were the one using killing intent just now? Hisoka nodded, bingo, correct answer, but there is no reward. Why are you doing this? We have no conflict with you, right? Killua frowned. Hisoka smiled, I just want to see how much you've grown. You're just bullying us, Killua shouted. Killua, I didn't expect you to be so naive. Did you forget where we are? This is the Heavens Arena. In this place, everyone is hostile against each other. Preventing you from registering is just removing an obstacle. Hearing this, Killua was speechless. Gon looked at Hisoka and said, Hisoka, Killua hasn't learned Nen yet. It's unfair that you're using Nen to deal with him. Just get out of the way and let us register. Hisoka shook his head, Gon, this is the baptism of Nen. Every contestant who reaches the 200th floor has to go through it. When confronting my killing intent previously, you dealt with it well, so you can go and register. As for Killua, he isn't qualified to pass yet. No, Killua must go with me. With this said, Gon pulled Killua over. However, Killua shook Gon's hand and said, Gon, Hisoka is right. I'm not qualified to pass yet. You go register first. But Killua, what will you do? I will pass before midnight, anyway. You should go first. Killua was determined, and there is no way Gon could change his mind. Hisoka looked at Killua in surprise and said, So, Killua, do you want to stay and try or go back first? Hisoka, wait here for me. Before midnight, I will be back. Leaving those words behind, Killua turned around and left. I'm waiting for you, Killua, Hisoka said playfully. After Killua left, Allan's figure appeared from the end of the corridor. Hisoka saw him and smiled, How about it, is the baptism to your liking? Killua looked pissed off. Allan nodded at Hisoka. He was already here when Gon and Killua arrived and witnessed the whole ordeal. Facing Hisoka killing intent laced with Nen, Gon's reaction was good, and Allan felt that his effort wasn't wasted. As for Killua, he didn't learn Nen yet, so he had no way to deal with Hisoka's killing intent. But as long as Allan trains him, he will quickly pass. Now, Killua should realize that his power isn't enough, Allan laughed. So, what are you going to do now? Hisoka asked. Thing. Make a choice. 1. Bet with Hisoka that Killua will pass the baptism. Reward, increase Nen by 2,000 points. 2. Bet with Hisoka that Killua will pass the baptism within a limited time. Reward, increase Nen by 5,000 points. Allan pondered for a moment and said, Hisoka, how about a bet? What are we betting on? We bet whether I can help Killua pass through here before midnight. Hearing this, Hisaka looked Allan in the eyes and asked, "Do you plan on helping him open the pores on his body and learn Nen in such a short time?" "Well, with his qualification, it should be possible," Allan said. "But, there is less than 3 hours left before midnight. It's not easy to help him in such a short time," Hisaka said. Allan shrugged. "You don't need to worry. Isn't that what a bet all about? Whoever wins gets 10 million jenny." Hisaka thought for a bit before nodding with interest. "Well, I will accept the bet." Allan was overjoyed. He didn't expect Hyosaka would agree to this and directly nodded. "Well, I will go find Killua now. You wait for him here, I think you'd be surprised." At this time, Killua, who came down from the 200th floor, met Zushi and Wing. He didn't know whether it was a coincidence or not. Seeing Killua's sad face, Wing pushed his glasses and said with a smile, "Looking at you, I can tell you're in trouble. Can I help you?" "No need." Killua shook his head. "You probably encountered someone who had Nen, right? As a result, you couldn't go to register on the 200th floor." Hearing this, Killua looked at Wing in surprise. "How do you know?" "As long as a contestant reach the 200th floor, he will be faced with that problem. Without Nen, they won't be able to pass and register. But since Gon mastered Nen, he successfully passed through and went to register first, while you couldn't, right?" Wing's words were like needles that pierced straight to Killua's heart. He lowered his head with an ugly expression on his face. He felt humiliated and a deep sense of powerlessness. What made it even more hurtful was that his friend Gon, who was the same age as him, learned Nen before him and successfully registered while he couldn't. This made it even more unacceptable for him. "Killua, if you don't mind, I can help you." "Help me?" "Well, I can help you master the basics of Nen, and at that time, you will be qualified to go and enter the 200th floor." Upon hearing this, Killua was a little moved. At this time, Allan just came down from the 200th floor and ran into Killua and Wing conversing. Seeing Allan appear, Killua's eyes lit up as if he found his savior. "Killua, where is Gon?" Allan asked, pretending not to know what happened. Killua told Allan about the baptism, and after hearing him, Allan nodded. "Well, come with me, I will help you with Nen." "Okay, I will be in your care," Killua said gratefully. "Don't worry. I always keep my promises," Allan said. During the Hunter exam, he promised to teach Killua, and now he was ready to fulfill his promise. "Wing-san, I'm sorry, I'm leaving now." Killua turned to Wing and apologized. "Well, I hope you can pass smoothly." Wing smiled as he didn't mind being rejected by Killua. Watching Killua leave with Allan, Zushi, who was standing beside the Wing, couldn't help ask, "Wing-sensei, Killua rejected your kindness, aren't you angry?" "Of course not." Wing shook his head gently. On the other side, Allan took Killua to his private suite on the 200th floor. When they entered the suite, Allan directly said, "Killua, due to limited time, I will briefly explain Nen to you. I will later use my Nen to open your pores and stimulate you Nen forcefully. After that, you will need to control it yourself." "Okay." Killua nodded seriously. Even though what Allan said seemed simple, it wasn't that easy to do. Freely manipulating the life energy emitted from the body is what is called Nen. There are 2 ways to open up the pores on the body to access that energy. The first one uses meditation to feel and control your life energy, and the second method is opening those pores forcefully through external force. Because of the limited time, Killua couldn't just sit down and meditate, so Allan decided to use the second method. Allan put his hand on Killua's back, stopping a few centimeters before touching him. "Killua, relax. I'm going to use Nen now." At the next second, Allan's Nen surged through Killua's body and forcefully opening every pore on the way. For an instant, Killua felt tremendous power gushing through his body continuously. "It looks like it's successful." Allan smiled. "Is this Nen?" Killua raised his hand. At this time, he could clearly see the white aura bursting out of his body. "This is amazing," Killua exclaimed. "Because the pores on your eyes are open as well, you can see Nen, Allan explained. Is it done now? Killua asked. Allan shook his head slightly. No, this is just the first step. Next, you need to calm down and manipulate that energy, and press it down so it can't surge out and leave your body. If you don't control it, then your life energy will keep on draining until you collapse and die. Control it? Let me try. Soon, Killua calmed his emotion and began controlling the life energy gushing out of his body. He was worthy of being a professional assassin. His control over his emotion was top-notch. Under Allan's guidance, Killua quickly controlled his nen smoothly. Now that you learned how to use ten, you can maintain your current state and challenge Hisoka. Is this really enough? Well, you should feel it already. You are already different from the past, and blocking his killing intent won't be a problem. Allan assured Killua, who thanked him gratefully and left to register on the 200th floor. Hisoka was leaning on the wall in the corridor leading to the registration window playing with his cards, and Gon was there as well. Gon, don't you want to go search for Killua? Hisoka asked. No, I believe that Killua will come here soon, Gon said firmly. Time passed slowly, and half an hour before midnight, Killua arrived. Oh? Seeing the aura around Killua's body, Hisoka was slightly surprised, but his expression turned playful soon. Gon finally relaxed as he saw Killua. Come on, Hisoka, I won't back down this time. Killua looked directly at Hisoka and challenged him. Okay, let's see if you can pass through here. Hisoka raised his hand and used nen. A strong killing intent mixed with nen erupted and filled the corridor. Killua didn't back down and blocked it with his nen without flinching. Good job. Seeing that Killua successfully blocked his killing intent, Hisoka smiled. Well, how about going up a notch? Hisoka used Hatsu to form a wall of nen in front of Killua. To pass, Killua had to break through the wall. The corridor wasn't long, but it became harder for Killua to move forward with each step he took because Hisoka's nen got stronger the closer Killua got. However, Killua didn't give up. He moved forward through the wall of nen step by step and finally reached Hisoka. Hisoka looked at Killua and smiled. Good job, Killua. Stop talking nonsense. I am qualified to stay on the 200th floor now, right? Killua looked at Hisoka coldly. Of course, since you learned the basic of nen, but there is still a large room to improve, Hisoka laughed. Killua snorted coldly. You wait and see, sooner or later, I will master nen. Nen is a profound art, and it's not simple to learn. Don't be too proud, or you will fail. Killua didn't appreciate Hisoka's reminder at all, and at this time, Gon directly came over and said, Killua, you need to register, quickly. Hisoka stood up and said, Okay, then I will go first. Have a good time. We will see each other again. Stop, Hisoka. Gon called out. What is it? Hisoka stopped. Gon replied, I want to challenge you to a fight. Hearing this, Hisoka smiled. Ha ha ha, are you serious, Gon? Of course, Gon said firmly. Hisoka smiled. Well, if you can win 10 matches on the 200th floor, I'm willing to accept your challenge. No problem, just wait and see, Gon agreed without thinking. I will see you then. Hisoka directly left. After Killua finished his registration, he came back only to find out that Gon challenged Hisoka. He looked at Gon speechlessly for a while before he reprimanded, You idiot, you can't beat Hisoka as you are. But I want to fight him. That guy actually dared to bully us because we are young. I want to fight him and punch him hard in the face. Seeing Gon waving his fist, Killua was amused. Haha, Gon, you are really an idiot. Do you know how terrifying Hisoka is? You actually said you want to beat him? Gon's face was serious. I have already talked to Hisoka. As long as I can win 10 matches on the 200th floor, he is willing to fight me. Killua was surprised. He knew that Gon was straightforward and very stubborn, so he couldn't say anything to change his mind. By the way, Gon, do you know how difficult it is to win 10 times above the 200th floor? Gon scratched the back of his head and said, It doesn't matter, does it? I will give it all I have, and we can become stronger, right? If we don't try, how can we become stronger? Okay. Killua was defeated. On the other side, Allan also knew about Killua passing Hisoka's test and Gon challenging him. He went to meet Hisoka to get his 10 million Jenny after he won the bet with Hisoka. Hisoka transferred the money and said, "Allan, this is the first time I actually bet with someone and lost." Allan replied, "You lost because you underestimated an amazing talent, and you underestimated me as well." "Ha ha ha, it seems so. However, if I bet with you again, I will definitively win," Hisoka said. "What do you want to bet on?" Allan asked curiously. "We bet on whether Gon can win 10 games on the 200th floor in 5 months or not," Hisoka suggested before continuing, "It won't be easy for Gon to win 10 matches with his current power." Allan said, "If he wins 10 games, then he can challenge a floor master, so that means you're a floor master, right, Hisoka?" "Yes." Hisoka nodded. "I don't think that Gon can win 10 matches, Hisoka said. "Then let's bet on that," Allan said. "Okay." Hisoka nodded. "So, if Gon can win 10 matches in 3 months, I will win. On the other hand, if he doesn't, you will win." Hisoka nodded again as he accepted that. 5 months isn't short, but it's not long as well. "We will wait and see," Hisoka said. "We bet 100 million Jenny, Hisoka, don't go back on your words if you lose," Allan said, and Hisoka laughed. "I won't lose to you this time." Hisoka looked at Allan's back as the latter left and thought, the rules of the matches above the 200th floor are completely different from the 190th, as the matches weren't randomly arranged. Each person needs to fight a match in 3 months, or else that person would be disqualified and drop down. Regarding the promotion from each floor, each person needs to win 10 games in total to ascend, but if they lose 4 games before winning 10, they will lose their qualification to continue. Winning 10 games allows anyone to challenge the floor master. Each floor from the 220th to the 250th floor is owned by a floor master. Floor masters can participate in Battle Olympia, where the winner gets to live on the 251st floor. Because there is a lot of time currently, Allan intends to stay in the Heavens Arena for a while, so he wasn't in a hurry to fight. The rooms provided here are luxurious, and it saves a lot of money. It was quite a good place for Allan since he also could watch the fights in here. The next morning, Gon and Killua found Allan and ate breakfast together with Hancock. "I hope you can continue teaching me, Nen." Killua was straightforward with his request. "No problem." Allan naturally agreed since he still had a mission to complete. As for Gon, he didn't ask for Allan's training because he already mastered the basics and what he lacks is combat experience. So he decided to apply for a match to improve while fighting. At the same time, he was preparing to win 10 matches and challenge Hisoka. Allan agreed and then asked Hancock to go back first. He accompanied Gon to the reception with Killua to apply for a match. When they reached the reception, they found 3 people there. Allan wasn't surprised because he already noticed those 3 guys. He knew they were targeting them as soon as they reached the 200th floor. Allan looked at the 3 weirdly dressed guys and sneered. They were the trio who targeted newcomers in the show. They were Guido, Riovelt, and Sadaso. They weren't strong. At best, they can bully newcomers. They are aware of their weakness, so they specifically look for newcomers who don't have much experience fighting. Right now, Allan, Gon, and Killua were undoubtedly newcomers. Therefore, they are eyeing them. Allan remained unmoved and asked, "What's the matter with you 3? "We are also here to apply for our matches," Rievelt said. Killua heard this and glanced at them coldly and said, "You see that we are newcomers, so you think we are easy to bully? Planning on applying for a match along with us so you can fight us later?" The 3 didn't expect Killua to see through their ploy and say it. Sadaso was slightly embarrassed as he said, Hee, now that you know about it, what will you do?" "Thing. Make a choice. 1. Directly kill those 3 now. Reward, Increase Nen by 3,000 points. 2. Join Gon and Killua in a 3 vs 3 battle against Sadaso and the others and kill them. Reward, Golden Treasure Chest X1. Seeing the reward, Allan picked the second option without hesitation. Compared to killing them here, killing them on stage is generous. Since you want to fight newcomers, let's fight then. Hearing this, the trio glanced at each other and couldn't believe their ears. Are you sure? Allan nodded. Of course, there are 3 of us on our side and 3 on your side. Let's have a 3 vs 3 match. 3 vs 3 match? What do you mean? Sadaso asked. It's team battle, Allan replied. The Heavens Arena doesn't have that type of battle, only 1 vs 1. As long as all of us apply for such a match, they will accept. Sadaso discussed this with the others for a while. Do you have anything to say? Allan looked at Gon and Killua and asked. Killua was already dissatisfied with those 3, so he shrugged. No problem. Gon said, I also don't have any problem. As long as I can fight, it doesn't matter who my opponent is. Okay, it's decided then. At this moment, Allan, Gon, and Killua, with the other trio, applied for a 3 vs 3 match. There was no precedent for that kind of battle in the Heavens Arena, and after some discussion between the officials of the Heavens Arena, they agreed to the match. The officials wanted to use this opportunity to gauge the audience's reaction to this kind of battle. The battle will be in 10 days, and in those 10 days, the Heavens Arena will promote this new kind of match to attract as many spectators as possible. 10 days later, the team battle officially started. On the Heavens Arena 212th floor, Allan, Gon, and Killua were on one side of the ring, while Gedo, Sadaso, and Reelvelt were on the other side. The place was filled with people as this was the first ever team battle in the Heavens Arena, and more than 8,000 spectators were here to watch it. If it wasn't for a limited space, more than 10,000 people would be on the stands. Therefore, the Heavens Arena opened a broadcast mode so that whoever couldn't enter the arena could still see what happened. Inside the ring, the 2 teams were ready. Sadaso looked at Allan and said, do you plan to fight all together, or one-on-one separately? Do as you like. We don't care. Allan shrugged. Then, let's go one-on-one. Since you're newcomers, we will let you decide who you want to fight. Allan smiled at the confidence of the trio. He looked at Gon and said, Gon, who do you want to fight? I will pick Gedo, Gon said. Allan looked at Killua and asked, what about you, Killua? Sadaso, Killua said. Allan nodded. Since they both picked their opponent, he was left with Reelvelt. The game soon started. Allan and Killua moved back to the edge of the ring to watch the match. Sadaso and Reelvelt did the same and retreated. Gon and Gedo moved to the center of the ring, and the match started. Gedo instantly launched 10 of his Nen-enhanced tops from his sleeves. The 10 tops surrounded Gon as they span crazily under Gedo's control. Facing the fast-moving tops, Gon decisively twisted his body and vigilantly looked at the spinning tops. At this moment, a top attacked Gon from behind and slammed on his back at high speed. One after the other, Gon's back was hit constantly by the tops. Gon groaned painfully as if he was hit by a car. The impact from the tops was unexpectedly strong. Fortunately, Gon used Ren to improve his defense, and this helped him defend against the tops. However, because Gedo landed a hit on Gon, he gained 2 points. According to the rules, whoever can accumulate 10 points first win. Gon didn't care at all. His gaze caught up to the spinning tops around him, trying to capture their trajectory. Facing so many spinning tops at the same time, Gon knew that he wouldn't be able to see all of them with his eyes. At this time, Gedo launched another attack. When the top was about to land on Gon's unprotected back, the latter sensed something and moved sideways, easily escaping from the attack. Humph! Gedo immediately manipulated the tops to attack Gon again. Gon's eyes saw the top moving from his left and directly kicked it. Boom! The top was sent away by Gon's kick. What? Gedo was shocked. Gon blocked his sneak attack and sent his top out of the ring. As soon as it landed outside the ring, the top quickly stopped spinning and fell. You still have 9 more. Gon glanced at the remaining tops around him. Asshole, you dare destroy my tops. Seeing one of his tops destroyed, Guido was furious. At this moment, 3 tops collided behind Gon and rushed toward him. Gon fought back for the first time as he clenched his fist and punched the spinning top. Boom. The top was destroyed again, and at this time, another 2 tops collided with each other and rushed toward him. Gon directly jumped up, avoiding the tops before kicking them fiercely. Another 2 tops were destroyed. 6 remaining. Gon landed on the ring and once again kicked another top. In less than a minute, Gon destroyed 5 spinning tops from the original 10, which made Guido furious. He finally figured out that Gon was planning on destroying all of his tops. Damn fellow, I'm going to kill you. Since his beloved spinning tops were destroyed one after the other, Guido planned on killing Gon. Suddenly 5 tops surrounded Gon, cornering him. They are faster than before and seem more powerful as well. Gon thought. If he is hit once, Gon wouldn't be able to defend against them. He directly activated his Ren and then erupted around him like crazy. Seeing this, Guido was surprised. He didn't expect Gon to not only know 10, but also Ren. If using 10 can greatly increase defense, Ren can increase explosive power and durability to another height. Right now, Guido was feeling panic. Feeling fearful of Gon's power, Guido took the lead and attacked in one full swoop intending to kill him. The 5 tops hit Gon at high speed from different directions. Ah! Gon shouted violently as the 5 tops slammed against his body, but it was like hitting an iron wall. What? Guido's eyes widened. Then Gon waved his hands and hit the spinning tops one after the other. All the spinning tops were destroyed. A madman. You are a madman. Guido shouted. Gon's actions were indeed crazy. When he knew that he couldn't avoid the spinning tops, he just defended with his body. However, Gon didn't care. Instead, he looked at Guido triumphantly. Your tops were defeated. You're next. Gon looked at Guido and rushed toward him. Guido snorted, do you think that you can defeat me by destroying my tops? That's naive. The next instant, Guido started spinning quickly like a large spinning top. Seeing this, Gon stopped his momentum. If he rushed in carelessly, he would definitively be knocked up into the air. Gon gathered Nen into his right fist and directly punched at the human spinning top. Boom. With a loud noise, Guido was blown away out of the ring. His entire chest sank, and his eyes were white. Gon knocked him out with one punch. Guido's companions looked at this dumbfoundedly. They never thought that Gon was so powerful. Good job, Gon. Killua looked at Gon and said. Gon felt guilty and said, it seems like I accidentally killed Guido. TN, out of character much. He said previously that Allan was cruel because he killed his opponent, but now he did it. Killua replied, he deserves it. Allan on the side looked at Gon and commented, Gon, although that move was strong, it took too much time to accumulate Nen, so you need to use it with caution in the future. I think you should train in the skill for a long time so you can use it quickly. Gon nodded at Allan's advice. The game wasn't over, it was the first match of 3, and immediately, it was Killua's turn. Killua moved to the center of the ring coolly. When Sadaso saw Guido die, he was no longer confident. Sadaso stared at Killua, not daring to look down on him. Go to hell. Shadow Snake Hand. 2 black snakes sprung from Sadaso's sleeves and launched an attack at Killua. Killua's figure flashed as he disappeared from his position. Sadaso was shocked as he saw Killua's image around him and could only order his snakes to attack. Killua was using Rhythm Echo, the assassination skill that confuses an opponent's eyes into seeing after images even though the user is walking. Sadaso was frightened and couldn't even react as Killua appeared behind him suddenly, and with a simple move from Killua's hand, Sadaso's heart separated from his body. Sadaso's heart was still beating in Killua hand. Sadaso looked in shock as he fell to the ground and died. The audience was stunned. They couldn't think that a 12-year-old boy could be that cruel. As Killua returned back to Gon and Allan's side, Gon said, "Killua, you didn't have to kill him, right?" Killua shrugged, "Gon, this is the Heavens Arena, it's only about winning and losing, regardless of life and death. Besides, Sadaso is more than guilty. What do you think happened to all newcomers after they reached the 200th floor?" Gon couldn't refute Killua's words. He already accidentally killed Kido, so he wasn't qualified to say otherwise to Killua. So he shut up obediently. "Next, it's your turn, Allan." Killua changed the subject, and Allan nodded and walked onto the center of the ring. There was only one person left, who was very afraid right now, since his two companions died. Facing Allan, Reelvelt wanted to admit defeat directly, but he thought that maybe Allan wasn't as strong as the other two, and he had a chance. "Let me try the power of a new skill on you," Allan said suddenly. "What?" Reelvelt didn't know what Allan was thinking, but he directly assumed a defensive position. Almost instantly, Allan's figure disappeared and appeared behind Reelvelt. Blue lightning danced in Allan's hand, making 1,000 birds chirping sound. Before Reelvelt could react, the Chidori penetrated his chest, killing him instantly. Allan pulled out his hand and glanced at the corpse and thought, Chidori is really great. It could one-shot almost anyone if it landed. Allan's performance surprised the audience, including Gon and Killua. Gon and Killua didn't think that Allan was that strong. It was really an eye-opener for them. The audience didn't expect three from the same team to die so easily. All that mattered in the Heavens Arena was winning, and death was a normal occurrence here. The three of them dying can be attributed to them being too weak. After that battle, Gon, Killua, and Allan made a name for themselves with just one match. They called them the Three Evil Stars now. It means that they killed their opponent without mercy and decisively. After the match, Allan won his golden treasure chest and was eager to open it. After parting with Gon and Killua for a while, Allan turned back toward the arena and asked the staff where the bodies were. The staff directly said that they were brought to the morgue of a local hospital. Allan directly left the Heavens Arena and changed his appearance along the way. This was the skill Allan got in the Hunter exam, disguise. It allowed him to easily change his appearance. At the moment, Allan was disguised as a familiar person, Illumi. Soon after, Allan arrived at the hospital's first floor and was stunned by the guards and stuff inside. They didn't block Allan, so he easily went to the morgue and searched for the trio's bodies. Finding them, Allan directly activated his predator skill. Allan felt like he became like a vacuum cleaner as his hand swallowed the nen of the trio. As soon as he started using the skill, Allan was forced into Zetsu state and couldn't use nen. Fortunately, the predation process was fast, and in less than a minute, Allan felt his nen increase. Allan's skill worked on a single target, and the first target was Sadaso's corpse. After the absorption ended, Allan could tell that his nen increases by 3,000 points. As for why there were so few points, Allan felt it was because Sadaso was dead, and nen was a kind of life energy that dissipated with time after death. So much of his nen dissipated after an hour of his death. Without further ado, Allan directly activated the skill on the other two, one after the other. After finishing the absorption, Allan could tell that there wasn't much difference between Sadaso and the other two. This was the first time Allan used the predator skill, so no matter how small the amount of nen he absorbed, it was worth it. Adding the three of them, he took 9,000 nen point. Of course, using the predator skill was risky, but he dared to use it on them because he knew they were cowards. There is no way those cowards would use the restraints of nen. And he was right about that. After leaving the hospital, Allan lifted his disguise and changed to his original appearance before returning to the Heavens Arena. Allan remembered that the last time he got a golden treasure chest, he received Chidori. And he looked forward to what will come this time. Thing. You opened a golden treasure chest and received Fishman Karate Secret Skill, Burikon, Vagabond Drill, 1. Is this Jimbei's Burikon? The skill that can send a shockwave through anyone by targeting the water in a person's body that can ignore defense? Of course, this skill wasn't all that good for the current Allan, but it was better than nothing. After the team battle, Killua and Allan didn't apply for further matches. Killua used the time he had to learn from Allan all about Nen. Allan acted as Killua's training partner all this time and practiced with him. Gon was injured by the spinning tops and was hospitalized for about half a month. Originally, his injury should at least take 3 months for him to recover, but Gon's regeneration was abnormal. When he stayed in the hospital, Gon couldn't participate in any matches as the high intensity of the fights would damage his body further before full recovery. So he practiced along with Killua and acted as the latter's training partner under Allan's supervision. Killua made rapid progress in his Nen training and almost mastered the basics of Nen. However, since he just learned Nen for a short while, his use of it was masterful yet. In that regard, Gon was better since he started using Nen for half a year already. As for Allan, he would train with Gon for a while before taking Hancock to watch the fights in the arena. As for training Nen, there was no need for special training at his current level, and he should pay attention to the amount of Nen and his control of it instead. After a while, Gon applied for his second match, and on the day of the match, Allan brought 3 tickets to watch the battle. This time, Gon's opponent was Yamamaru, a strong man but seemed overweight. He has a record of 3 wins and 1 defeat, so he was more famous than Gon, who was a fledgling rookie. But many people supported Gon. After all, he could kill someone with just 1 punch, which was something all the audience couldn't forget. As soon as the match started, Yamamaru rushed toward Gon. Seeing this and being as stubborn as he is, Gon faced his head-on. Boom. Gon's small body actually blocked Yamamaru's huge body. Gon only stepped back half a meter before stopping Yamamaru's charge. This made the audience who supported Gon explode in cheers. Gon used Ren to resist Yamamaru's attacks, who was fierce despite his look. In terms of strength, both were equally matched, but to break the stalemate, Yamamaru directly lifted his hand and slapped Gon on his stomach. Gon let out a painful cry, but he wasn't sent flying or knocked down unexpectedly. An astonishing amount of Nen emerged from Gon's body as his anger exploded. With this, Gon's power skyrocketed, thrusting Yamamaru's huge body backward before falling. Gon actually defeated Yamamaru in terms of strength, which made the audience dumbstruck. But the fight didn't end, as Yamamaru, who fell out of the ring, climbed back up and quickly returned to the ring. He was angry and couldn't bear losing to a kid, so he decisively let loose his Nen and instantly overwhelmed Gon with his huge build. However, Gon was scared. Instead, he felt excited. 1. The stronger his opponent, the stronger he would get. Boom. 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 The battle continued as both landed hits on each other for a while. After 20 minutes, the game finally came to an end. Gon managed to force Yamamaru out of the ring once again and knock him out. Gon didn't win because he was stronger than Yamamaru, but because he was more determined and his willpower was astonishing. After the battle, Gon was hospitalized for another week or so. It was unavoidable since, in the battle with Yamamaru, he was exhausted and hit a few times. As for Yamamaru, he would need half a year before he could have a rematch. After recovering, Gon participated in the third match, and his opponent's record was the same as his. 2 wins and 0 losses. His opponent's name was Kenji Ichiro. Allan took Hancock to watch the match. As for Killua, he wanted to catch up as soon as possible, so he refused to attend and continued training. Needless to say, as long as Gon's opponent wasn't stronger than him by much, he wouldn't lose. In the end, Allan was surprised as Gon won his match. The battle didn't take long. Even though both seemed to have the same record, Gon improved the most when he was fighting, and it didn't take him long to win the fight. So far, Gon won 3 matches without losing once. Gon was trying his best because he wanted to fight Hisoka. Gon had 5 months to win 10 games and challenge Hisoka. He even put a mark on his calendar for that day. Now, he won 3 games and still needs to win 7 more in 4 months. Gon didn't feel tired or had any thought of retreating from this challenge. He was even firmer than before. Therefore, he soon applied for his 4th match, and unexpectedly, Killua applied for a match as well. Killua hadn't participated in any matches since the team battle, but now he wanted to see the result of his training. Gon and Killua weren't matched against each other, to the disappointment of the spectators, since they were eager to see the two of them fight. But their matches still attracted many people at the end. Gon won 3 games, and many people thought he would win his 4th, but Gon encountered a strong opponent. His opponent was much stronger than the last 3 games and not at the same level at all. When Allan saw Gon's opponent, he couldn't help but freeze because his opponent was actually Castro. Castro was the person who challenged Hisoka and was killed in the ring. Although Hisoka killed him, it didn't mean that Castro was weak. In fact, he was quite strong. Hisoka may have won and killed him, but his hands were cut. Allan knew that Gon wouldn't be able to win this match. At this time, Castro looked really calm. He looked at Gon and said, "I have watched your previous games, you were very good." Faced with Castro's appreciation, Gon looked at him in the eye and said, "I'm sorry, but I want to win this match as well." "Quite brave," Castro said with a smile. After a few seconds, the match started. Gon discovered that both he and Castro were enhancers, and first time, Gon felt exhausted and overwhelmed. He used Ten, Ren, and Hatsu one after the other in quick succession just as the match started and was feeling quite tired. There was a great gap between Gon and Castro. Whether it was skills, experience, or Nen, Castro was better. One was strong, and the other was weak. Even the ordinary audience could tell this. However, facing such a powerful enemy, Gon wasn't discouraged at all. Instead, he was excited to win. The stronger his foe, the stronger he could become. The battle lasted for about 10 minutes. Gon only hit Castro once and scored 2 points. However, Castro didn't want to kill Gon, so he just accumulated 10 points. After the game, Gon was taken to the hospital without any delay. Gon was admitted to the emergency room directly because the last blow landed on his head. "Hello, I'm Castro, who fought Gon previously. I come to visit Gon. How is he?" Allan saw Castro and heard his word. He could tell that the latter was sincere. "Although Gon is still young, he is tough and determined, and I learned much from the fight. I don't need you to care about him. Please leave," Killua said as he glared at Castro. If he didn't know that Gon would get angry if he did anything, Killua would have already pounced on Castro. Castro looked at Killua and said, "You must be Gon's good friend." "Sorry, I hit him slightly hard." Killua said coldly, "Leave, I don't want to see you." At this moment, Allan stood up and said to Castro, "Don't worry, Gon won't die that easily. I'm not sure what you want, but please come back later." "Okay, I will go back now and hope we can meet once again." After saying this, Castro left. Damn that guy. He even dared come here and lie about seeing Gon. "I think he was sincere," Allan laughed. "I want to fight him," Killua said suddenly. Hearing this, Allan immediately looked at him and said, "You can't." "Why?" Killua looked at Allan, confused. "Do you think I will lose?" Killua asked him. Allan nodded, "That right, you're still not strong enough for someone like him." "I won't necessarily lose," Killua retorted. 90% probability that you'd lose," Allan said. He didn't say 100% only because Killua had great potential. But under normal circumstances, the current Killua wouldn't be able to win against Castro. Although Killua didn't want to admit it, he knew that Allan was right. After calming down, Allan patted him on the shoulders and asked him to concentrate on his battle tomorrow. The next day, it was time for Killua's battle. This was his second match after arriving on the 200th floor. After a month, he stood on the ring again with his confident expression. He was always confident about his power, and now that he learned the basics of Nen, he was even more confident. This time, Killaw's opponent was Takeuchi, with an impressive record of 4 wins and 0 losses. This made him look at Killawa with contempt because Killawa seemed to be a kid. However, Takeuchi wasn't good. He clearly knows anyone who reaches the 200th floor. It isn't simple. The little kid in front of him must also be extraordinary. When he saw Killawa's confidence, he knew that the kid was confident about his own strength. This made Takeuchi feel excited as he wanted to crush Killawa's confidence and defeat him. At the start of the match, Killawa used Ten, which effectively improved his attack and defense. Maintaining Ten when fighting was the most basic ability of Nen users. Takeuchi was doing the same. Nen covered his body like a layer of armor. Killawa's figure disappeared suddenly. He appeared in front of Takeuchi and slashed at him with his hand. Takeuchi was surprised by Killawa's speed, but he could still react and leaped back, avoiding Killawa's attack. "Oh?" Killawa was slightly surprised and smiled. "Not bad, your reaction is good. It seems that this match will be interesting." Takeuchi is a young man in his 20s, but Killawa didn't say his words to mock him. Takeuchi won't allow himself to lose against a 12-year-old kid. He directly shouted and punched Killawa. Killawa's figure disappeared, and Takeuchi's fist landed on the floor and created a hole. "Oh? You're an enhancer, it seems." Takeuchi was indeed an enhancer, so his fists were his weapons. Enhancers strengthen themselves and use their bodies as a weapon. Takeuchi was attacking Killawa fiercely while the latter used his agility and movement skills to evade. "Stop hiding and face me head-on." Takeuchi became frustrated and shouted. "Well, I will attack then." Killawa's expression changed, and his face turned cold. After a while, Killawa hit Takeuchi 5 times and won directly. Impossible. Hearing the referee's decision, Takeuchi couldn't believe it. He yelled loudly, "I actually lost to a kid." Killawa frowned and said, "Please be careful of what you say. Although I'm a kid, it's in your best interest to not treat me as one, or you will regret it." "Sorry." Realizing his behavior was bad, Takeuchi directly apologized. "It's okay." Killawa waved his hand and then walked out of the stage. Allan was waiting for him and said, "Good match." Allan smiled. Takeuchi was a good opponent for Killawa. "Thanks." Killawa raised his head triumphantly when Allan praised him. 10 days later, Gon recovered fully. The doctors couldn't understand Gon's terrifying resilience. "This child will probably be back and trouble you again in the future. Please take care of him." "Of course." Although the doctor found Allan's word a little weird, he replied politely. As soon as Gon recovered, he applied for a game directly. Because he lost previously, his current record was 3 wins and 1 loss. Any participant who loses 4 times on the 200th floor will lose the qualification to stay on the 200th floor, and his win record would be deleted. Fortunately for Gon, this game went smoothly. Although his opponent was good, he wasn't strong enough. While Gon kept competing for his 10 victories, Allan applied for a match as well. According to Killawa, Allan was too strong for the normal matches in the Heavens Arena. He was only here to kill time and bully some participants. Allan's opponent was someone with a 5-win record. He never lost, and his record was very good. He was quite famous on the 200th floor and was regarded as a rookie who will be a floor master in the future. On the day of the match, thousands of people filled the arena waiting the exciting match. Allan walked up the ring, but his opponent was late for several minutes. Allan decided to teach him a lesson since he wants to be late. Allan's opponent arrived, wearing a black cloak. From the referee, Allan learned that his opponent's name was Chihu. "You will pay for your lateness," Allan said without the slightest hint of emotion. Hearing this, Chihu sneered and said, "Who do you think you are?" "The one who wants your life," Allan replied. That depends on your ability. Chihu didn't bother talking anymore, and then erupted from his body like a black mist. The black fog spread across the ring, covering Allan in it. The audience was in an uproar as this black mist prevented them from seeing anything. When the cold black mist approached Allan, the latter was already using Kenbun Shaku Haki for the first time since he came to the Heavens Arena. Although his sight was affected, his Haki can easily locate his target. To use this black mist to hinder his enemy's line of sight was undoubtedly an assassination technique. This showed Chihu's job. In the black mist, Chihu pulled out a dagger from his cloak and launched an attack at Allan. Allan sneered, facing Chihu's attempted assassination without and didn't do anything else. When the black dagger approached Allan's throat, it collided with something hard and stopped after it made a clanging sound. Chihu was shocked. The next moment, he was shocked to find a cold chill rush toward him. In an instant, half of his body was frozen. "You're caught." A voice like the death gods whispered in Chihu's ear, making him shocked, and in the next moment, he felt death. In the black mist, when Allan caught Chihu with his ice fruit ability, a black sword appeared in his hand. It was Yatsufusa, a sword that makes anyone slain by it popped under the sword wielder's control. Allan stabbed Chihu's heart without hesitation and ended his life. Chihu, who died, got cursed by Yatsufusa and now turned into a puppet for Allan. Yatsufusa can control up to 8 puppets, and the ability of each puppet is the same as he was alive. The only deficiency of Yatsufusa was energy consumption. The more controlled puppets, the larger a burden is put on its wielder. Allan used Yatsufusa to control Chihu and ordered him to lift the mist. No one knew what happened in the mist except for Allan. As soon as the mist was dispersed, Allan lifted the curse from Chihu, leaving his corpse behind. After the match, Allan went to Chihu's body and used his predator, gaining 5,000 nen points. Time flew by fast, and 3 months passed quickly. At this time, 4 months have passed since Allan and the others came to the Heavens Arena. In the past few months, Gon won 8 matches and lost 2, which meant he needed 2 wins before challenging Hisoka. Killua performed well as he won 5 matches without losing. As for Allan, he quickly won 10 games and had the right to challenge a floor master. However, Allan wasn't in a hurry to get that position yet. Because being a floor master was something he could get any time, and there was no need to rush. Gon, Killua, there is an interesting game today. I hope you come and watch. Allan took out a few tickets and gave Gon and Killua one each. Of course, he gave one to Hancock as well. Who is fighting? Gon asked curiously. You will know when you get there, Allan said mysteriously. After that, Allan took them to the 200th floor to watch the game. When Allan and Gon saw the two standing on the ring, both were surprised. It was Hisoka, facing Castro. How is it? You're surprised, right? Allan asked after seeing their reactions and laughed. Why is Hisoka fighting with Castro? Gon was surprised. It's better to say Castro is challenging Hisoka, Killua said. I heard that Castro lost to Hisoka when he first came here and wanted to challenge Hisoka for his revenge. They agreed on fighting after 2 years, so here we are, Allan said after recalling some of that information. I fought Castro before, and I know he is strong, Gon said. I think Hisoka is stronger, Killua stated. Why? Gon asked and looked at Killua. Instinct, he doesn't have an aura as strong as Hisoka, Killua replied as he looked at the ring. So you can tell how strong someone is based on his aura? Gon asked as if he understood something. That aura can oppress someone, but it doesn't represent strength most of the time. It can't be used as an indicator all the time. From experience with nen and skills, Hisoka is better than Castro, Allan said. So, Castro will lose? Gon asked curiously. Most likely, Allan replied. If I can, I want to fight against Castro again, Gon muttered. He was worried about his previous loss against Castro and always thought about challenging him back to verify how much he improved. Killua could help to hit him on the head and said, "From Hisoka's personality, Castro will probably die today." "Really? Hisoka will kill Castro?" Gon's expression changed. Killua gave Gon a weird look and said, "What? Do you think Hisoka is a good person? That guy is the same type as me, and I don't know how much blood is on his hand already." "In other words, Hisoka killed a lot of people, right?" Gon asked. "Yeah." Killua nodded. Allan then said, "Gon, take this opportunity to see how strong Hisoka is. I think Castro should be able to force Hisoka to show some skills. You can take this opportunity to know more about your target." "I understand." Gon nodded. At this point, the game already started. Hisoka and Castro didn't start fighting from the start as they talked about something. Afterward, they saw Castro's stance change. Then he directly attacked Hisoka. Allan saw Castro using his tiger-bite fist, which was indeed fierce. If a hit lands, it would seem like a tiger's bite. Castro didn't learn Nen the right way, so his Nen ability wasn't compatible with his Nen type, and which Hisoka used to disrupt him. Castro used his body double to unleash his true tiger-bite fist. He successfully cut off Hisoka's left hand. However, Hisoka didn't panic at all and wore a confident expression all the time. After a bit, he revealed the secret behind Castro's clone, confusing him. Then Hisoka used his ability to attack his hand to his body and make it seem like he regenerated. This made Castro panic, and the course of the battle changed. It happened the same way as the show, with Castro defeated and Hisoka killing him. Gon felt a little regretful about Castro's death, and at the same time, he realized that he was too naive about challenging Hisoka. After the game ended, Allan found an excuse to get out and directly searched for Castro's body before using Predator on him, gaining 10,000 Nen points, and to his surprise, Castro's Nen ability with Tiger-Bite Fist was added to his skills as well. Allan tried to use Tiger-Bite Fist and found out that it was similar to Yamcha's Wolf Fang Fist. The difference was strength and agility. The Tiger-Bite Fist imitated a tiger which was fiercer and stronger than a wolf, while the Wolf Fang Fist imitated a wolf, which was more agile and faster than a tiger. Allan was quite intrigued about what would happen if he merged the two styles together. What kind of style would he end up with? It would be more powerful and fiercer than Wolf Fang Fist but also more agile than the Tiger-Bite Fist. After returning, Allan copied Wing and took the recording of Hisoka and Castro's fight for Gon and Killua to watch. Then he asked them to find out Hisoka's ability. "What kind of ability did Hisoka use when he fought Castro? It seems very mysterious," Gon asked as he stared at the recording. "I can't tell." Killua was slightly frustrated as he turned toward Allan and asked, "Allan, can you explain?" "Of course." Allan stood up and walked toward the TV before started explaining. Hisoka used two abilities, the first is called Bungee Gum, and the second is Texture Surprise. Bungee Gum is turning Nen into gum-like substance that can stick to targets like gum. It also has the ability of rubber. Texture Surprise can turn Nen into various kind of texture, like Skin's texture which he used in the fight to make it seems like his hand was reattached. This ability can reproduce any kind of texture, and it is only limited by the user's imagination. "But we can't see Hisoka using Nen," Gon said. "That's because Hisoka used an advanced form of Zetsu, which can hide aura well. This technique is called in, as in conceal, which make Nen hard to detect without stopping the aura flow like Zetsu." "So that what happened? Castro didn't notice anything at all then?" Killua asked. Allan nodded, "You can say so." "So, how can we see through in?" Gon asked. "It's not difficult, you only need to apply the principle of Ren to focus part of your Nen into your eyes, and you can see his Nen clearly. This is an advanced technique of Ren and called Gyo. If you want to see what Hisoka's doing, you have to learn it." Upon hearing this, Gon and Killua immediately tried to gather Nen to their eyes and see through Hisoka's in. Allan reminded them, Gyo is a high-level technique, and if you want to learn it, you need to be highly proficient in using Ren. Otherwise, even if you can barely use it, you will not be able to see Hisoka's nen. Because Hisoka is quite clever in using nen, he can almost hide it completely, and a half-hearted Gyo won't be able to see through him. We understand. Gon and Killua replied in unison. After that, they directly started training. Seeing this, Allan didn't disturb them and went out of the room quietly. Allan walked around the Heavens Arena with Hancock, who was very displeased staying in the Heavens Arena recently. This is annoying. Men here stare at me all the time as if it was their first time seeing a woman. That's because you're so beautiful. They probably didn't even see a woman as beautiful as you. Allan smiled and said lightly. With this said, Allan put his hand on Hancock's waist and walked in front of the passers-by, who looked at him in envy. I really don't like to stay in that place. When are you planning on leaving? Well, we'll leave after Hisoka and Gon fight. They will fight next month most likely. Hearing this, Hancock nodded before she noticed someone and said, Look, isn't that the woman who caused you trouble in the airport? Allan turned around to look and found a familiar face. It was Maki from the Ryodan. Why is she here? Allan was a little surprised. Is she here for me? Allan shook his head as he remembered that Maki was here for Hisoka. At this time, Maki noticed Allan and remembered what happened before, and directly glared angrily at him. What a coincidence, I didn't expect to meet you here. Allan took the initiative and greeted her. Maki snorted coldly, I didn't come to find you, but you delivered yourself to me. Very good, I will kill you here. A thread suddenly appeared on Maki's hand and launched it as Allan. The thread cut through the air fiercely. Allan was already on guard and directly raised his hand and blocked. Allan knew that Maki was a transmuter, and her main ability was the nen threads. The thread can have many functions, like attacking and strangling, and it can also stitch wounds. Even though it was very thin, it was tougher than a thick rope. She can even stick a needle to it and use it for tracking. The strength of the thread is proportional to the length it stretched to. Once it became too long, its strength will decrease. Seeing Allan easily block her attack, she directly jumped forward with a claw attack on his chest. Looking closely, Allan could see the threads wrapping around Maki's fingers. When the attack was about to land, Allan avoided easily by stepping sideways. Unwilling to give up, Maki once again sprung forward with her claws and once again failed. Allan seemed to be teasing a cat. While Maki was fiercely attacking him, he was just smiling. You! Damn it! Maki was frightened and angry at the same time. She thought she was good before, but she couldn't even touch Allan's clothes with her attacks. No matter how she attacked, Allan seemed to see through her and avoid easily. This is the first time she had such a predicament. Okay, let's end this game. Allan easily grabbed Maki's hands from the wrist. Don't be rush. Allan smiled lightly. Bastard. Maki gritted her teeth. She couldn't keep up with this guy's speed at all. She was once again subdued by this man. Thinking about how Allan played with her the last time, she was extremely angry. What do you want? Seeing Allan being silent, Maki asked. I'm just thinking, should I kill you? Maki's pupils shrunk hearing this. Afraid? Seeing her expression, Allan asked again. You can do that if you have the ability, Maki said coldly. She was mentally prepared to die. However, she didn't expect to die at the hands of someone like Allan. Hearing Maki's answer, Allan shrugged and said, Okay, as you wish. At this time, a card flew over and interrupted Allan. Allan raised his brow and looked at Hisoka, who appeared from somewhere. I don't know what happened between you two, but it seems like I came at the right time, Hisoka said. Don't be nosy, Hisoka. Allan glanced at him, unfriendly. Then he looked at Maki and said, Although I don't want to be nosy, I still owe that woman a favor, so I hope you can let her go. Allan looked straight at him and said, Are you pleading for her? Almost, Hisoka said. Thing. Make a choice. 1. Give Hisoka face and let Maki go. Reward, golden treasure chest X1. 2. Kill Maki directly. Reward, devil fruit, string fruit. 3. Hold Maki hostage and threaten the Gene Raiden once. Reward, Nen ability, Holy Prayer of Light. Seeing the options, Allan frowned. All 3 rewards were good, actually. The second option was indeed great. Doflamingo's devil fruit was very powerful. If developed properly, its power won't lose to a Logia fruit. However, Allan had the ice fruit and didn't need the string fruit. On the other hand, Allan was curious about the third option. Judging from the name, this ability wasn't ordinary and may even be a healing ability. After thinking for a while, Allan finally chose the third option. Allan looked at Hisoka and said, "Hisoka, it's not impossible for me to let her go. However, she attacked me and wanted to kill me, so I can't just let her go like that." Hisoka nodded and asked, "So what do you want?" Allan thought for a bit and said, "Let's do this. Hisoka, you go to Kurlo and tell him that Maki is in my hand. If he wants her, then take out 1,000,000,000 Jenny as an exchange." Billion? Is it too much? No, Kurlo has the money, and it isn't that much for him, Hisoka said. That's fine then. Please go tell him, Allan said. I can go meet him, but Allan, are you really blackmailing Kurlo? You know that the Raiden is a notorious criminal organization. They have always been the ones who steal from others. Allan lightly replied, "You don't need to worry about that." All right then. Hisoka stopped talking and took out his phone to call Kurlo. Maki was still subdued by Allan and saw that he wanted to use her to blackmail Kurlo. She did nothing but grit her teeth and said, "Damn it, you dare use me to blackmail the chief, I won't let you go." Shut up. Allan shut Maki up. If it wasn't for the reward and 1,000,000,000 Jenny, he would have let her go so easily. On the other side of the phone, Kurlo heard his phone ringing and directly picked up. "Hello, Hisoka?" "Yeah, Chief, it's been a long time." Hisoka smiled. "Hisoka, what's the matter?" Kurlo asked. "You asked Maki to come to the Heavens Arena to inform me about what's coming, but it seems like there is trouble." Kurlo frowned. "Trouble? What troubling you?" "It's not me who is in trouble. It's Maki," Hisoka said. Kurlo asked in surprise, "What did you say? What happened to Maki?" "Maki is now in Allan's hands." Hisoka's sentence made Kurlo's face sink. "Is Allan also in the Heavens Arena?" "Yes." "How did Maki end up in his hands? What happened?" "I don't know the details, but it seems there is a conflict between them, and Maki attacked him first and wanted to kill Allan. As you know, with her power, it's impossible for her to harm him, so she ended up in his hand, but she isn't hurt." "Is that so?" Kurlo breathed a sigh of relief after hearing that she is okay. "So, what's Allan going to do now?" Kurlo asked in a deep voice. "Allan asked me to tell you that if you want him to let her go, you have to give him 1,000,000,000 Jenny. Otherwise, he would kill her," Hisoka stated. After finishing the call, Kurlo called Pakunoda. "What's the matter?" Pakunoda entered the room and saw Kurlo frowning. "Maki was caught," Kurlo said solemnly. Pakunoda was surprised. "What?" "A few days ago, I asked Maki to go to the Heavens Arena to inform Hisoka about the plan in York City on August 30th. I don't know why Allan was there. They were at odds. And then, what does that fellow want?" Pakunoda met Allan in the Hunter exam before, and she fought with him and was very impressed by his power. "Allan wants me to send 1,000,000,000 Jenny to redeem Maki, or he will kill her." Hearing Kurlo's words, Pakunoda said coldly, "He is using this opportunity to blackmail us, Chief. What are you going to do? Are you going to pay him?" Kurlo didn't answer directly but asked, "Have they contacted you, Vaughan?" "Well, he is with Nobunaga. I have notified them about the gathering." Kurlo nodded and stood up. "Get ready, we'll set off now." "Where to? York New City, or Heaven's Arena?" "Heaven's Arena." Kurlo closed the book in his hand. "Would you like me to inform you, Vaughan?" Pakunoda said. "No need." Kurlo shook his head and said, "Vaughan had a conflict with Allan during the Hunter exam, he chopped one of his hands, And if they were to meet, Yuvagin would definitively fight, which isn't something I want to see. Chief, are you afraid of him? Kurlo didn't answer. Chief, it's undeniable that this guy is strong, but if we go alone, we still have you here, and you are more than his opponent. And in the end, he is only one person. If we join hands, we can definitively kill him. Kurlo shook his head and said, not necessarily. Why? Kurlo paused for a bit then said, remember what we said when the Raiden was founded. We are spiders with a mind that is responsible for issuing orders and 12 feet to execute them. No matter whether it's the head or the feet, they can be changed. However, once the head and feet are severely injured at the same time, the spider is finished. Hearing this, Pakunoda frowned and said, Chief, do you mean that even if we can kill Allan, we will pay a heavy price? And this price is something that we can't afford, really? Kurlo shook his head, it's not that we can't bear to kill him, but the price is higher than not killing him. It's not worth it. I understand. Pakunoda stopped asking and said, I will go prepare 1 billion jenny. On the other side of the call, inside the Heavens Arena. I've already told Kurlo about Maki's situation. After hanging up, Hisoka turned around and said to Allan. Allan nodded and carried Maki on his shoulder after knocking her out and said, if Kurlo or someone else comes, you lead him to my room directly. Remember, tell them to bring the money, or else they will collect her body. Seeing Allan's cold expression, Hisoka narrowed his eyes and smiled, you really don't have any pity for Maki. She is one of the few women that I appreciate. Wouldn't it be a pity to just kill her? Allan stopped and looked at him. A guy like you actually appreciate a woman? And a fierce woman like her? I'm a man after all, and seeing a beautiful woman is fascinating, Hisoka said with a smile. That's also true. Allan glanced at Hancock next to him then returned to the room with Maki on his back. What are you going to do to her? Hancock asked after they were in their room. What can I do? If they bring the money, I will keep my promise and let her go. While talking, Allan threw Maki on the sofa and tied her up firmly. Of course, Allan didn't expect a normal rope to prevent her from escaping. The reason he did this was to remind her that her current situation wasn't good and to not act trashly. So, who is this woman? Why does she want to kill you? What kind of force is behind her? Hancock asked a few questions at one go. Allan made a cup of tea and explained everything to her. After learning that Maki was a member of the Genie Raiden, who were fierce and ruthless, she released some killing intent. It's better to kill her directly. Even if you let her go this time, she won't be grateful and will only hate you more and try to kill you again. Keeping her alive is like a curse. Allan was a little surprised by Hancock and laughed. What are you laughing at? Hancock was puzzled. Are you worried about me? Allan looked at her. No. Hancock blushed a little and turned her head away. Allan was very happy seeing this and smiled. Hancock, do you remember? When I first summoned you into this world, you hated me so much and wanted to kill me. I said that before. I didn't know what kind of person you were at that time. What about now? Stop asking, I don't want to answer you. Allan shrugged and didn't ask anymore. After 2 hours, Maki woke up and panicked when she found herself bound tightly. After calming down, she remembered what happened before. You're awake. She turned around and saw Allan sitting, looking at her. Let me go, bastard. Your chief isn't here with the money yet. How can I let you go? Maki snorted coldly, and her muscle tensed, and the ropes were cut. After gaining her freedom, Maki rushed toward the door. In the blink of an eye, ice surged in the room and froze Maki completely. Allan looked at her and said, Really? I didn't want to use this method to teach you. Why bother running away? He ignored Maki and looked at the time. It had been 6 hours since Hisoka talked to Kurlo. If Kurlo was close, then it was enough for him to arrive at the Heavens Arena. After 2 more hours, Hisoka called him and learned that Kurlo had come in person with 1 billion jenny. Soon after, there was a knock on the door. Allan opened and saw Hisoka standing in front of the door, and behind him were Kurlo and Pakunoda. "Come in." Allan wasn't worried about them attacking him at all and let them inside. Kurlo looked at Allan calmly and said, "It has been a long time." "It's just a few months." Allan shrugged. "You seem to have changed a lot." "What do you mean?" "You become vicious." "Well, yes. You haven't changed much, the same for Ms. Pakunoda." "Stop talking nonsense. Where is Maki?" Pakunoda was angry. "Pay the money, and I will deliver her to you." Allan smiled lightly. Hearing this, Pakunoda handed a golden card and said, "The money is inside. The code is 6 zeros." Allan nodded and put the card away, then carried Maki out. "Why is her body so cold? What did you do to her?" Seeing Maki's eyes closed and her body cold made Pakunoda think that she died. "Don't be nervous. She isn't dead," Allan said indifferently. "She was silly, so I punished her a little." Pakunoda put her hand on Maki's chest and tentatively found her heartbeats, which made her relieved. "Okay, I returned your people back. You can leave." Allan directly chased them out without giving them any face. Kurlo said solemnly, "Let's go." Pakunoda glared at Allan and picked Maki before following Kurlo out. Hisoka was the last to leave as he had something to say to Allan. "Tell Gon that I have to leave before August 30th. If he can't win 10 times before that, then I won't be able to fight with him." "Don't worry. He will definitively fight you before you go," Allan said confidently. After Allan left, Allan checked the system and found that his reward arrived. Ding. You successfully blackmailed the Ryodan using Maki. Reward, Nen ability, Holy Prayer of Light. Ability description: the Holy Prayer of Light can speed natural recovery and relieve fatigue and restore the spirit. Using this ability will consume too much Nen and can only be used once a day. If the limit is exceeded, then you will be forced into a Zetsu state for 30 days. Allan was satisfied with the healing power of this new ability as it can save his life or anyone close to him. Although it can only be used once a day, this ability gave him an advantage in critical times. With his current strength, he doesn't dare to set off to the Dark Continent, but as long as he stayed here, only a few people would be able to hurt him. Only the old monsters were dangerous for him right now. Therefore, the greatest use of this ability was not healing himself but relieving fatigue. After all, he was still human and would feel tired. Thinking about this, Allan tried activating this new ability, and a golden light directly emerged. A being with a scepter and wings on his back stood in front of Allan. "Angel?" Allan's eyes widened. "I greet Master." Allan was taken aback. He didn't expect this angel to be self-aware and even talk to him. "Do you have a name?" "Master, please give me a name." Allan thought for a bit and said, "Well, since you have the ability to heal, then I will call you Raphael." "Thank you for giving me a name." Raphael smiled. "Raphael, help me relieve my fatigue," Allan ordered immediately. "I will do so now, Master." As he said this, Raphael raised his hand, and a golden brilliance fell on Allan, making him feel refreshed, and all the fatigue in his body disappeared. What a powerful ability! Allan couldn't help the smile on his face. "Good job, Raphael." Allan gave him a thumb up and praised him without hesitation. "Thank you, Master. You have used Raphael's ability for today. See you next time, Master." With that, Raphael disappeared. A few days later, Gon and Killua finally mastered Gyo and could use it in battle. Although they weren't very skilled, it was enough for a normal battle. Everything else depends on their experience. 10 days later, Gon finally won his 10th match, with a record of 10 wins and 3 losses. Gon spent 130 days to win 10 matches, which were less than 5 months. Fortunately, the time didn't exceed 5 months, or else Allan would have lost the bet. Unexpectedly, I underestimated the kid. He really progressed quickly. Hisoka stood in the hallway to give Allan the money of the bet. They bet 100 million yen each, and since Allan won, Hisoka came to finish the deal. "Well, since you lost the bet, You should pay. Don't forget to put the money in my account, Hisaka, Allan said earnestly. Hisaka was somewhat depressed and complained, Allan, this is the second time I bet against you and lost, which is really unpleasant. Allan patted her shoulder and said, it's okay, keep working hard, and maybe one day you will win a bet against me. Can I ask you not to be excessive in the match? Just show Gon your serious side and fight seriously, but don't injure him gravely. He earned that much. After all, he worked really hard to fight you. Is this a request? Hisaka asked. Allan shrugged. Well, it's still within the favor you owe anyways. I see. Hisaka nodded and left. So, the day of the anticipated fight arrived. The battle is held on the 220th floor of the Heavens Arena on August 25 at 3 o'clock. Tens of thousands of spectators were eager to see the match as Gon's performance in the past 3 months gained appreciation from many people. Today, his opponent was the magician, Hisaka. Such a grand occasion attracted the attention of a large audience. Allan and Hancock attended the game, and of course, Killua is here as well. There was also Zushi and Wing here, along with many floor masters. As the game started, Gon directly charged at Hisaka fiercely, and the latter retaliated. There was a lot of energy in its small body, and Hisaka, who intended to play around for a bit, turned serious as Gon continued to attack. Once, twice, thrice. Gon was knocked down by Hisaka many times, but each time he would stand up again before the 10-second count ends. This perseverance made many regards Allan highly, and even Hisaka looked at Gon in a new light. Finally, Gon seized an opportunity and punched Hisaka in the face. This punch almost knocked Hisaka down, and as a reward, Hisaka punched back heavily. Even though Gon's body was strong, such a punch made him fall down and lose consciousness. Gon's defeat meant that he failed to get the floor master position, but for Hisaka, Allan, and Killua, this proved Gon's power. After Gon and Hisaka's match, another eye-catching match was about to begin on the second day. The participant in this match was Hisaka, who fought 2 days ago, and Allan. This match attracted even more audience than Gon since Allan's record was 10 wins without any loss. Because Hisaka is a floor master, Allan was the challenger, but only Gon and the others knew that it was actually Hisaka challenging Allan. Finally, we are about to fight. On the stage, Hisaka said excitedly on the ring. Hisaka, you seem confident. Allan flexed his muscle, and to be honest, he wasn't excited about this fight. After fighting with Netero and Zeno, those two monsters, Allan's power improved greatly, and it was difficult for most people to actually make him excited about a fight. Hisaka, I will fight against you, grab your position, and sit down after, Allan said calmly. If you have the ability, then come, Hisaka said with squinted eyes and no trace of the usual smile. As the match started, Allan attacked first and shot 2 icicles toward Hisaka. The white icicle wasn't hard, but they seemed like water. Anything that touches those icicles will freeze instantly. The icicles were fast, but Hisaka was on guard and jumped away and stuck to the ceiling using his bungee gum. The icicles didn't stop and continued toward the audience, and the unlucky person was hit and froze instantly. Allan wasn't surprised because if that kind of attack was enough for Hisaka, he wouldn't be the Hisaka he knew. Try this next. Allan stretched his hand forward like a bow, and an arrow condensed from thin air. Partisan. Allan aimed at Hisaka, who was still stuck to the ceiling. Hisaka directly released his bungee gum and fell down on the ring, and as soon as he landed, a shadow approached him. Hisaka responded quickly and blocked Allan's attack. Oh? Good reaction. Allan sneered, and Hisaka sensed danger. Just when he was about to move away, his legs were frozen, and he couldn't move. Taking advantage of this, Allan resolutely used Leaf-Strong Whirlwind and landing a heavy blow on Hisaka. Although Hisaka used Nen to protect his arms and block the kick, it still sent him down. As Hisaka stabilized himself, Allan flashed using flash steps and punched Hisaka's left cheek violently, knocking him down again. 2 seconds passed from the first attack till Hisako was punched. Clean hit. 1 point to Allan. Under the ring, the referee in charge of the score decisively gave 1 point to Allan. A clean hit can get 1 point. It hurts. Hisako spat a mouthful of blood. This punch was way stronger than Gon's punch from 2 days ago. What a freak. Allan looked speechlessly at Hisako, who was so excited after being hit. So, it's my turn to attack now. Hisako opened his palm and took out his playing cards, and threw them like shuriken. Allan didn't even move a step away, only swayed his body slightly and avoided them. Allan raised his eyes and saw the cards flying back at him. Using Gyo, Allan saw Hisako's nen wrapping around the cards and guiding in the air. Hisako used bungee gum to do this, but it was a useless trick in front of Allan. Allan was using observation hockey, so no matter where the cards came, he could dodge them. Ice Saber. Allan created a saber and sliced the playing cards apart. At this time, Hisako spread his hands and sent dozens of playing cards toward Allan. Ice Wall. Allan created an ice wall that blocked the 60 or 70 cards. Hisako's playing cards were sharp and enhanced with nen, and they broke through the ice wall. Seeing the wall break, Allan took a step forward and then kicked. Rankyaku. Hisako saw the air blade flying toward him and looked serious. In the next instant, Allan saw him pull his hand quickly, and a spectator was pulled into the ring and acted as Hisako's shield. The spectator was split in two instantly. This made Allan frown. Apart from feeling sorry for the spectator, he felt that he is truly unlucky. That's a really bad thing to do, Hisako. He didn't think that Hisako would stoop so low. I'm just using my means efficiently. Allan didn't say anything after hearing Hisako's words. Indeed, if no one acted as his shield to block the Rankyaku, he wouldn't be in his current good state. Ordinary people can't stay alive after being hit by the air blade. After this happened, a commotion broke out. Some spectators who were closest to the ring started running away. However, most people didn't leave. The audience didn't want to waste such a rare fight. When something like that happened, Allan stopped attacking Hisako using Rankyaku. Since Hisako dared to pull someone to the ring as a meat shield, then he wouldn't mind grabbing another one later. By the way, your attacking method is interesting. I could use some ice, and that thing you shot is really useful. Allan didn't answer Hisako's ridicule. Forget it. I should hurry up and end the battle, Allan thought to himself. At this moment, Allan rushed toward Allan, who sneered, "Want to fight melee? Okay, I will play with you." Boom. Boom. After exchanging 3 punches and 2 kicks, Allan smiled coldly. Armament type, hardening. Using observation hockey to predict Hisako's movement and armament hockey to increase his power, Allan's fist trapped in black, and with a bang, Hisako was blown away. Critical hit. 2 points to Allan. The referee said loudly. Allan's current score was 3 points. Hisako, I changed my mind. I will just win with points. Allan looked at the pale Hisako rising from the ground with a mocking smile, returning the previous mockery back. Hisako's face was gloomy. He covered his chest with one hand, as he could tell that at least one rib was broken from the last punch. This made him shocked since Allan wasn't an enhancer, and his power shouldn't be that strong. Otherwise, Hisako would have been safe after using Ken to defend. Did you use Ko? Hisako asked curiously. Ko combines 5 nen skills, 10, Zetsu, Hatsu, Ren, and Gyo, in which all of the user's aura is concentrated into one particular body part. Gyo is utilized to focus aura on the part of the body, while Ten is used to prevent it from dispersing. Zetsu is used to completely stop the flow of nen in all other parts of the body, increasing the output in the desired area. With Ren, the amount of aura is increased even further. The only disadvantage of this skill is the lack of defense. Since a part is concentrated with nen, no other part will be covered in nen while using Ko. Allan didn't answer Hisako. He smiled mysteriously instead. He wouldn't tell Hisako that he used armament hockey instead of nen. Hisaka didn't ask again since Allan didn't want to tell. Allan hooked his finger at him and provocatively said, "Come on, Hisaka, I want to get 10 points." "Hey, just what I want." Hisaka was a fighting freak. Facing Allan's provocation, he didn't back down. Even though it might be a trap, he still went forward to fight Allan. Boom. Clean hit. 1 point to Allan. Allan hit Hisaka again and scored another point. "Come again, come on." Hisaka didn't pay attention to the pain in his body and rushed like crazy toward Allan. However, Allan's speed exceeded his expectation. But that aroused his fighting frenzy even more. Hisaka's nen radiated around him as both fighters entered a high-speed movement. Their figure disappeared, and the crowd could only hear bang-bang sound from time to time. Afterward, everyone saw Hisaka flying back and sliding on the ground. Critical hit. 2 points for Allan. The referee loudly stated. Allan had 6 points right now, and only 4 remained. At this time, Hisaka stopped himself from going outside the ring. Even though you won't lose if you get out of the ring, for Hisaka, it meant he lost if he stepped out of the ring. After scoring 6 points, Allan intended to take the opportunity to score the remaining 4 quickly, but to his surprise, he saw several pink thread-like things sticking to his body. The other end of the thread was in Hisaka's hands, who was freely moving them. "It seems like Hisaka intends to restrict my movement using bungee gum." Allan saw through Hisaka's motive instantly. Hisaka pulled his hand hard to pull Allan away. Allan snorted coldly and cut the bungee gum sticking to his body using the ice saber. With the bungee gum cut, Hisaka couldn't move Allan. "You saw through that?" Hisaka's face was gloomy, and he didn't expect Allan to notice his bungee gum so quickly. He was good at concealing nen using in, and no one ordinary could notice it even if they tried. But Allan noticed it and cut it off almost instantly. This may seem simple, but it showed that Allan was proficient in using gyo during fights. "It's useless, Hisaka. I already know your abilities, and they are useless in front of me," Allan said with a sneer. "Oh? Really?" Hisaka said amusedly as if he didn't believe Allan. "You don't believe me? Well, I tell you in detail then. You're a transmuter, you can change your nen into chewing gum that can stick to surfaces and targets. This chewing gum also has the properties of rubber and can reflect projectiles and so on. This is your main ability and the one you use often. Right?" Hisaka looked at Allan gloomily and said, "So you investigated me before I noticed." "Wrong, I didn't do such a thing," Allan denied. "How do you know this then?" Hisaka was curious. "That's a secret." Allan sneered as he raised his hand and released cold air. Hisaka jumped up and stuck to the ceiling again. Allan looked at him and said, "Hey, Hisaka, do you think you are the only one who can fly?" Allan directly took a step and started rushing toward Hisaka using Geppo, moonwalk. Hisaka didn't seem surprised. He seemed to know that Allan can step on air, which was similar to flying. In the blink of an eye, Allan already used armament hockey and punched Hisaka. The air howled from the power behind the dark fist, which made Hisaka abandon any thoughts of blocking it. He released his bungee gum and jumped from the ceiling back to the ring. As soon as he touched the ring, Hisaka looked up to be greeted by a huge icicle falling down on him. Hisaka's pupil shrunk as he rolled awkwardly. The ring tiles broke apart by the icicle. Hisaka raised his head again and saw Allan rushing down toward him. So fast. Hisaka was taken aback, and in the next moment, Allan's fierce attacks arrived. Wolf Fang Fist. This move was used by Yamcha from Dragon Ball. This is the first time Allan used this style, as he wanted to try the power of this move. Hisaka felt like he was facing a fierce wolf. He was able to parry at first, but Allan's speed picked up, and, in the end, Hisaka received many hits. Boom. 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 The muffled sound of each punch made the audience swallow hard. Wow! Allan Senshu, player, is attacking Hisaka Senshu fiercely. The female commentator outside exclaimed, watching this scene. Needless to say, anyone can tell that Hisaka was being hammered by Allan right now. The referee didn't know how to count points anymore. Hisoka fell down after the fierce attack and didn't move. It seems that it's quite powerful. Allan smiled. Start the count. Allan glanced at the referee. The referee directly started the countdown, and when he reached 5, Hisoka suddenly got up. Seeing this, the referee stopped for a few seconds. Allan was surprised. As expected, Hisoka's ability to endure pain is comparable to Gon's. It should be his instincts guiding him to stand up. This is so great. It's been a while since the last time I took a beating, so comfortable. Hisoka said with excitement, combined with his swelling face. He seemed really funny. Allan almost screamed at this. He got goosebumps all over his body as he didn't continue fighting this freaking masochist. Hisoka smiled a wicked smile and directly utilized his bungee gum like a web to grab a few spectators and threw them at Allan like cannonballs. The spectators screamed as they flew toward Allan. Allan easily dodged and said, "Boring." "Really?" Hisoka sneered and once again dispatched a few spectators toward Allan. Allan didn't avoid this time. Instead, he waved his hand and froze them. When Hisoka saw this, Hisoka didn't stop. The audience was just a chess piece to him, and he can use them as much as he wanted. In a few seconds, dozens of spectators were dragged out of the stands and thrown at Allan only to be frozen. Hisoka didn't care if the spectators died, but Allan wouldn't kill needlessly. He just froze them and left them alive. Although Allan didn't care about the audience, he couldn't just watch Hisoka's behavior. So he moved to stop him. Allan flashed at high speed and appeared in front of Hisoka in a blink of an eye. Hisoka couldn't react, and in the next moment, Allan released his Conqueror's Haki directly at him. Hisoka felt his spirit and consciousness become sluggish. "Hisoka, try this." A spherical ball appeared in Allan's hand. Rasengan. The Rasengan directly hit Hisoka's abdomen and sent him flying away. A swirling wound appeared on his stomach. The scene was so quiet that if a pin dropped, everyone in the arena could hear it. Hisoka fell on his back at the edge of the ring, and blood flowed out of his mouth. His abdomen was severely injured by the Rasengan, and his internal organs were damaged, which should prevent him from continuing the fight. Critical hit. 2 points for Allan. TKO. Allan Senshu accumulated 10 points and won the match. The referee's voice rang through the arena. In fact, if you really count Allan's previous attacks, he should have accumulated more than 10 points already. "Hisoka, you lost." Allan walked toward Hisoka and looked at him. Yes, Hisoka lost, and very thoroughly at that. "You completely defeated me," Hisoka said. Although he was severely injured, he didn't resent Allan for this. Instead, he was sincerely convinced by the overwhelming power Allan showed. As a challenger, he failed, but he was still convinced of his defeat. Allan was a little surprised that Hisoka would actually be convinced by his loss. After all, he was an arrogant man who was confident in his strength. Make a choice. 1. Take the opportunity to kill Hisoka. Reward, spring fruit. 2. Gain Hisoka as a friend and save his life. Reward, rare treasure chest X1. Allan thought for a bit. Although the devil fruit was good, he didn't want to kill Hisoka. He didn't know why, but he thought that he and Hisoka were the same kind, so he chose the second one. "Hisoka, for the sake of old times, I will save your life." Originally, Allan wanted to use the senzu bean to heal Hisoka, but he thought that it would be a waste since it was the only senzu bean he had. However, Hisoka seemed on the verge of death already. "Right, I can try that." Allan had an idea. "I can just use Raphael." Allan directly activated the Holy Prayer of Light. "Master, what's your order?" A white two-winged angle appeared in front of Allan. "Raphael, save this guy." Allan pointed at Hisoka, who was lying on the ground. "Yes, Master." Raphael immediately flew in front of Hisoka and opened his hands, and placed them on his oak's abdomen. With a burst of light, Hisoka's wound started healing quickly. But at the same time, Allan frowned. He could clearly feel his nen being consumed by Raphael. That's enough, Raphael. Seeing Hisoka's expression improve, Allan decisively stopped Raphael. In just a short 10-second healing Hisoka, Allan consumed 30,000 nen point. If he continued, he would be exhausted at the end. At the same time, Allan received his reward from the system. At this time, Hisoka, who was lying on the ground, got up. Although he was fully healed, he was brought back to life. Allan, you. Hisoka looked at Allan. He really didn't expect Allan to save him and to even possess such a powerful healing ability as well. Allan stopped him and smiled. You don't need to say any more, Hisoka. If you feel grateful, remember that you owe me. After that, Allan stopped talking and left. It looks like I completely lost to him. Hisoka looked at Allan's back with a complicated expression and smiled bitterly before leaving as well. After stepping out of the arena, Allan couldn't wait for the reward he would receive from the system. Ding. You opened a rare treasure chest and obtained the rare Mangekyo Sharingan. What? I got the Mangekyo Sharingan? Allan was taken aback. Note, the Mangekyo Sharingan belongs to one of the 3 bloodline limit Dujutsu in Naruto, and host needs chakra to use it. No way? Allan tried it but couldn't use it since he didn't have chakra and his Mangekyo Sharingan was now in a dormant state. Allan was speechless because this was the same as winning $10 million from a lottery, only for the bank to freeze his account before he could use them. It's strange that I could use Chidori and Rasengan before, but I can't use the Mangekyo Sharingan. After some thought, Allan comes to a close conclusion as to why he couldn't use it. The Mangekyo Sharingan was a bloodline limit and wasn't like a normal jutsu. If that's the case, then I will try forming chakra in my body. Allan knew that chakra was physical and spiritual energies combined. However, he had no idea how to form it since this was Hunter x Hunter world, not Naruto. There is no such thing as the chakra tree, and there is no Kaguya who was the ancestor of chakra in this world. Furthermore, the energy used in the HXH world is Nen. Anyways, Allan wanted to try it. He didn't want to have the Mangekyo Sharingan and be unable to use it. Allan. At this moment, Killua came over. Allan temporarily set aside the matter of Mangekyo Sharingan and looked at Killua. Allan, I didn't expect you to defeat Hisoka so easily. Let's go and tell Gon about this, Killua said. Allan nodded and went to the hospital with Killua. In the match between Gon and Hisoka, Gon broke a few ribs and a hand along with various minor injuries, which should heal after half an hour, according to the doctor. But of course, since he was gone, a month would be more than enough. 1. Gon, we have some good news. Killua smiled. What's the good news? Did Allan win against Hisoka? Gon guessed. Of course. Killua nodded. I knew that Allan would win. Gon smiled as he was always confident in Allan's strength. I have the recording of the match. Let's play it now. Killua took the videotape and went toward the TV. After watching the match, both had the same thought. Allan was too mysterious and strong. They didn't know how many hidden cards Allan had. Every time they figure out something, he would have something new. Allan looked at both of them and laughed while feeling somewhat proud. Although he really wanted to tell both of them that he was a transmigrator and has a cheat that won't lose to their protagonist Tora, he couldn't reveal that to them. At this moment, Allan's phone rang. You continue talking, I will go answer the phone. Seeing the ID of the caller, Allan was a little surprised and answered. Hello, I hope you're doing good these days, Allan? On the other side of the phone, an old man started talking. Allan smiled at Zeno's greeting. I'm doing great. Where is Killua? Zeno asked. Killua and Gon are in Heaven's arena, both learning about Nen, and I have to say, Killua is quite good. Allan briefly stated. Well, thank you for taking care of him, Zeno said with gratitude. It's nothing, by the way. Did something happen? Allan asked curiously. Haha, something did happen. Zeno smiled before turning serious. I've taken a mission for you. Are you interested? Allan became interested after hearing this. What is the mission? There is a rich man who wants to hire a first-class expert to protect his daughter. His daughter has an ability that helped her predict the fate of others. Therefore, he wanted to find someone strong and reliable to protect her. Usually, I don't accept such requests, but I thought you would just pass the time and get quick money with no risk. Allan pondered for a bit before asking, Master Zeno, this rich man you're talking about doesn't happen to be Light Nostrade, and his daughter is Neon Nostrade, right? Oh? You actually know them? Zeno was slightly surprised. I've heard a little about them, Allan said lightly. However, he was quite surprised as he didn't expect Zeno to introduce this kind of bodyguard business to him. So, what do you think? Zeno asked tentatively. Before Allan replied, Zeno added, the other party gave quite a sum of money that ordinary people won't make in 10 lifetimes. Allan thought for a while then said, well, if that's the case, then I will try it out. I plan to leave this place anyway. Zeno nodded and said, then, you can meet them in Hotel Batical on the 29th of August. The interview room is 2302. Although I introduced you, there may be a test of a sort before they accept you in. Okay, I got it. After hanging up, Allan smiled then returned to the hospital. Allan, who is it? Gon curiously asked. It's Killua's grandpa. Allan glanced at Killua, who said, what? My grandpa? Killua couldn't sit still anymore and said, what does my grandfather need from you? Allan shrugged. He introduced me to a business opportunity. What business? Who is your target? Killua subconsciously asked. It's not an assassination business, and it's a bodyguard one, Allan said while spreading his arms. In fact, he thinks that assassination is more interesting than being a bodyguard. Did you agree? Killua asked. Allan nodded. Well, it's about time. Anyway, I've already stayed here long enough. I need to go to other places. So. In other words, Allan, we're going to part ways? Gon asked a bit reluctantly. It's just a temporary separation, Allan comforted. When will you leave? Killua asked. My interview is on the 29th of August. So, I'm leaving tomorrow or the day after, Allan said. By the way, I might be working in York New City, and there will be a 10 days auction held from the 1st of September to the 10th of the same month. You can go take a look there. Maybe you can find some treasures. You earned about 300 million jennies here, so it should be okay for you to go there. Is it popular? It's an auction festival held every few years, and it should be very lively there. Allan smiled deeply. He knew that the spiders would be there to look auction items and fight against a few gangs. Of course, Allan still doesn't know how it will turn up there. The next month would be the liveliest month in York New City. I plan to go back to Whale Island first, and then we can make plans. Well, why don't you go see Mito? Do you want me to go with you? No, Allan, since you have something to do, you should do your job. I will be fine. Allan nodded and looked at Killua. Well, Killua, you can go back with Gon since you didn't visit his home before. Is that okay? Killua looked at Gon and asked. Of course, if you don't dislike it there, you're always welcome, Killua. Gon grinned. Okay, it's decided then. We will meet in York New City then. Allan patted their shoulder. Hancock, I'm leaving this place. In a high-end coffee shop next to the Heavens Arena, Allan informed Hancock. Hancock's expression changed slightly. So, what are you going to do? I will terminate the contract, and you can go back to your world. Really? Yes, after the contract is closed, you can return to Amazon Lily again. Hancock stayed silent for a while before she nodded. She knew that she wasn't someone from this world, and she couldn't stay here for long. Allan was really reluctant to let Hancock go, but there is no permanent banquet in the world. There are always people you have to part with. We won't meet again? Before leaving, Hancock asked. Who knows, Allan said as he wasn't sure himself. When Allan first arrived in the Hunter x Hunter world, He chose the 1000 Days Survival Challenge. As long as he survives till it ends, he has a feeling that he would be able to leave toward another world. 1. A year already passed since he arrived here, and 2 more left. But he didn't know where the system will send him at that time. On the 2nd day after terminating the contract with Hancock, Allan bid farewell to Gon and Killua and left the Heavens Arena. There was almost a week before the 29th of August, so he wasn't in a hurry. He found a secluded place and started trying to form chakra, which didn't belong to this world. If he can form it, he will have 2 types of energies in his body, the first is Nen, and the second is chakra. However, unfortunately, Allan couldn't form chakra. He could tell that if he wanted chakra, then he would find a place that contains it, which is Naruto's world. And here, he can't form it. The reason for this is simple. Chakra didn't belong to this world, and form it will have huge restrictions. Just like growing core, some can only grow in the south but not the north and vice versa. Since he couldn't form it in this world, Allan didn't become obsessed with the idea as he had another way to obtain it, which was his cheat ability. As long as he had the system, getting chakra won't take long. Speaking of the system, Allan suddenly thought that he didn't study it before. He only knew that this was the God of Choice system, which let you make a choice and gain rewards after finishing the chosen option. After a while, in front of Allan's eyes, a large virtual screen appeared in front of him, which was the system's interface. There were 3 main sections, namely the homepage, the tasks section, and locked section. Clicking on the homepage section, new information appeared on the screen. Personal information, equipment, skills, inventory, points, vertical bar system store, and so on. The functions were quite detailed, which looked like a game interface. Allan clicked on his profile, and detail about him appeared. Then he clicked on his equipment, which led to a pop-out with many grids where he can equip many things, and the already equipped items were there as well. At this moment, there were many things like the ice fruit, Yatsufusa, Shusui, and the storage ring were displayed. Next was the skill panel, which also had a grid for each skill. Nen ability, Grimm's Hand, Nen transmutation ability, Ice, Nen ability, Nen stomach, vertical bar Heaven's Eye, Devour, Holy Prayer of Light. Looking at those various skills, Allan sighed contently. After that, he took a look at the inventory and found his devil fruits and skills cards. Well, what's this? After researching for a bit, Allan was surprised to find that each item can be sold for points. The so-called points are similar to gold coins in games which can be used in the system store. Allan clicked on the rubber fruit, and 2 options popped up. The first one was, use. The second one was, sell. Since Allan couldn't use another devil fruit currently, he chose to sell it. Are you sure you want to sell rubber fruit? Yes. Rubber fruit successfully sold for 10,000 points. 10,000 points? Allan didn't know if that was much or not since he still didn't open the store. After checking his points, he found 10,000 points lying there. With this, Allan clicked on the system store since he obtained some points. A new interface appeared in front of Allan with a dazzling array of goods and a variety of products, with each having a price under it. Allan was completely fascinated. There were so many products on display. Only 100 products were on this page, but there were 9,999 pages. There were so many commodities that it was difficult to calculate. From the first page, Allan saw many familiar items, for example, the Renegan from Naruto's world. Allan was surprised as he didn't think there was such a good thing. But as he saw the price under it, Allan felt like cold water splashed all over him. The Renegan required 500,000 points to buy, and he only had 10,000 points currently. I don't know if there is a chakra in here. Allan searched for a bit looking for chakra. Finally, after spending 2 days and turning over about 5,000 pages, Allan found chakra on page 5032. In addition, the price of chakra was exactly 10,000 points. Selecting the chakra, Allan bought it without hesitation. The next moment, the item he bought appeared in the inventory. He clicked on chakra and used it successfully. In his body, other than the ice fruit, Allan currently had chakra and nen. Although Allan had chakra, it didn't mean he was free to use it. The reason was simple: nen and chakra were two different energies, so the two were conflicted. Therefore, when using nen, Allan can't use chakra, and vice versa. If he wanted to use chakra, he needed to switch to chakra mode. As for the devil fruit, it didn't affect this at all. With chakra, Allan can now try the Mangekyo Sharingan. The next day, Allan entered a forest and then switched from nen mode to chakra mode. All the nen in his body was converted into chakra, and at the same time, his eyes turned into Mangekyo Sharingan. A pair of scarlet eyes appeared in place of his normal ones. Suddenly, information about each ability entered his mind. His left eye's ability was a mental attack that can pull the target into an illusion world, and its name was Tsukuyomi. His right eye's ability was the Black Flames, Amaterasu. Left eye has Tsukuyomi, and the right eye has Amaterasu. Is this Uchiha Itachi's Mangekyo Sharingan? Taking out a small mirror, Allan could clearly see the triangular dart-like pattern in his eyes. Sure enough, this is Itachi's Mangekyo Sharingan. After confirming to who the eyes belonged, Allan was very excited since the Mangekyo Sharingan had a third power ability, which is Susanoo. Itachi's Susanoo was special since he had a curved blade that resembles a dagger on his right hand. That blade is the Sword of Totsuka, which is an ethereal weapon with an enchanted blade that can seal anyone it pierces into an illusion world for eternity. On his left hand, he had a shield that can change its nature depending on the attack it receives, and it's named Yoda Mirror. If Allan's Mangekyo Sharingan was the same as Itachi's, then Susanoo will be the same as well. Thinking about this, Allan immediately mobilized his chakra to activate Susanoo, but unfortunately, he couldn't. The reason is simple, and he doesn't have enough chakra. As Susanoo was one of the strongest abilities of a Mangekyo Sharingan, it needed a certain amount of chakra, but currently had enough to keep the Mangekyo Sharingan activated, but not use its power. Not to mention Susanoo, even Tsukuyomi and Amaterasu used more chakra than he currently has. Fortunately, chakra can grow through practice. Allan temporarily closed his Mangekyo Sharingan and wanted to start training to increase his chakra reserve. As long as the number of chakra increases, it doesn't matter how long it takes. Allan thought happily. However, before he began training, he decided to go to York New City for the interview. The next morning, Allan took an aircraft toward York New City. After a day, the aircraft finally landed at York New City's airport. This is Allan's first time in York New City. Looking at this lively and prosperous city, Allan had a good impression of it. Walking out of the airport, Allan first went to a hotel nearby and changed his face. Since his nen ability works with his imagination, he changed to a middle-aged man with an ordinary appearance. He didn't have anything outstanding. He seemed quite average and ordinary. Allan was satisfied with his new look as he wanted that effect. As to why he changed his appearance, he didn't want any attention. After coming out of the hotel, Allan directly took a taxi and went toward Hotel Batical for his interview. After he reached his destination, Allan bypassed the security and the reception and went toward the 23rd floor. According to the information he received from Zeno, the interview was on the 23rd floor, room 2302. Allan raised his head and knocked on the door twice, and after a while, a gloomy man opened the door. The man looked at the disguised Allan the same way Allan was looking at him. The man in front of him was the head bodyguard Dalzaline. "Who are you, and what are you doing here?" Dalzaline asked while staring sharply at Allan. "I'm here for an interview." Allan deliberately changed his voice. He changed his voice because it would seem unnatural for an old man to have his voice. "Who introduced you?" Dalzaline asked in a deep voice. "Zeno of the Zoldyck family." Hearing Allan says that name, Dalzaline was shocked. "You're Allan?" Allan nodded softly. Dalzaline looked at Allan again and was confused. But since this person was introduced by the legendary assassin Zeno, he didn't say anything and opened the door for Allan. "Let me introduce myself." Allan looked at Allan and said, "My name is Allan. I'm the head bodyguard of the Nostrade family. I'm responsible for the security, and anyone who is here to work for the Nostrade family needs to pass my interview." Allan nodded and said, "My name is Allan. I'm a professional hunter." "Professional hunter? Do you have your license?" "I do." With that said, Allan took his hunter license, which made Allan nod his head. Although he wasn't a professional hunter, he dealt with them before, and Allan's license was genuine. Allan put away his license and stared at Allan, waiting for his answer. "Although you are recommended by Master Zeno, and you're a professional hunter, you will have to be tested according to the Nostrade family's rules." "No problem," Allan said readily. Allan took out a list and handed it over to Allan before he said, "If you can get rid of the people on this list, I will recognize your strength and hire you on behalf of the Nostrade family." "I can do that." Seeing such an easy-going answer, Allan reminded him, "If you can't complete this mission within 24 hours, then I'm sorry, but I can't hire you." "Don't worry, and I will finish it soon," Allan said confidently. Walking out of the hotel, Allan glanced at the information in the paper before he tossed it away in a trash bin. According to the mission he received, he needs to kill a man named Gary. This Gary was a gang leader that was competitive with the Nostrade family. And Allan's task was to help the Nostrade family get rid of him. For Allan, this task was simple, and the first step was to find where this Gary was. Allan checked through the internet using his hunter license and found relevant information about Gary and the industry under his name. Gary's full name is Gary Dahl. He is the head of the Dahl family and owns 2 casinos, 10 chain hotels and 5 gambling halls, and various small businesses. His total assets were 100 billion jenny. At the same time, Gary was a well-known figure in the underground society, and his gang always competed with the Nostrade family. Both sides regarded themselves as deadly opponents and wanted each other dead. However, both of them had equal strength and couldn't get rid of each other. After getting the information about Gary, Allan shook his head. Allan's trick wasn't hard to see. On the surface, he wanted to test Allan's strength, but in fact, he wanted to use someone else's sword to strike the enemies of the Nostrade family, and even if he failed, Gary wouldn't be able to link him to the Nostrade family. Although Allan was a little upset about being used like this, he decided to complete the mission first. Allan got Gary's current location with a little trick and drove toward the mansion he was currently in. This mansion was in the northern suburbs of York New City with vast land. It has wineries, swimming pools, and golf courses, amongst other facilities. "Stop! Who are you?" When Allan approached the gate, a security guard immediately stopped him. Allan sneered, and before they could approach Allan, both fell to the ground unconscious. To deal with those small fries, all he needed was conqueror's hockey. With a leap, Allan directly crossed the 10 meters high gate and entered the mansion. Allan walked straight toward the villa. Just as he was about to enter, the security guard in charge of patrolling the villa discovered an intruder. They were Gary's security guards and in charge of escorting any guest to him. There were many of them, but all Allan needed was once again a glance, and instantly all fell down. Allan easily entered the villa and saw several people in the hall. They were different from the bodyguards outside, and Allan could easily tell this from their aura. "Who are you?" The man leading them stared at Allan coldly but didn't act trashly. The reason was simple: since Allan could get here, it showed his ability. "The one who came to take your boss's life," Allan said indifferently. "How arrogant. This is the Dahl family property. Who do you think you are?" The man snorted and rushed at Allan with the people he had. They were quite fast. Of course, they were fast to ordinary people. For Allan, they were quite slow. Allan didn't bother engaging them, and with a simple thought, cold air spread around him, and all of them were turned into ice sculptures. Allan shook his head and walked around them to enter a certain room. When he walked into the villa, he already spread his observation hockey along with N to increase his perception. At this moment, this villa was shrouded in Allan's perception, and nothing can escape him. Allan stood in front of a door before he pushed it open. In the room, an old man in his 50s, along with a young woman in her 20s, was panicking because of the intruder. "Found you." Allan showed a chilling smile as the old man was his target, Gary. As for the young woman, she was obviously Gary's lover. "Are a killer sent by the Nostrade family?" Gary suppressed his fear and asked. "You're only half right. I'm here to take your life," Allan sneered. "Don't kill me, and I can give you money, a lot of money. How about 1 billion Jenny?" Seeing that Allan was unmoved, Gary pushed the shivering woman and said, "Do you know this woman? She is a supermodel. I will also give her to you. Here you go, as long as you let me go." Allan didn't even look at the woman. After Hancock, most women weren't attractive to him. Seeing Allan smile without speaking, Gary felt like he was facing the Shinigami. Before death, the so-called powerful person is nothing than this, Allan sighed in disappointment. The next moment, a cold light flashed in Allan's hand, and before Gary could see anything, he fell dead. Seeing that Gary was dead, the woman was so frightened that she started begging Allan, "Please, don't kill me, I have nothing to do with Gary. He paid me 100 million and wanted me to play with him. We are just business partners." "Don't be silly, I don't hit woman, just go." Allan waved his hand. "Thank you." Just as the woman passed by Allan, she suddenly fell down to the ground without a word. Allan shook his head and left the villa after burning the scene of the crime without leaving any clue behind. Back to room 2302, Allan saw Dalzaline again. Seeing Allan back so quickly, Dalzaline looked at Allan, slightly frightened, and said, "Done? See for yourself." Allan dropped a bag casually. When Dalzaline opened the bag, his pupil shrunk slightly as he saw Gary's head. Taking a deep breath, Dalzaline looked at Allan and said, "You unexpectedly finished the task. You're really amazing." It was easy. Allan didn't care. Dalzaline felt slightly guilty, but in the end, he said, "On behalf of the Nostrade family, I hire you as the bodyguard of the Nostrade family. Your duty is to protect the boss's daughter, Miss Neon." With that said, Dalzaline took out a contract and handed it to Allan. "Please take a look, and if there is no problem, you can sign below." Allan glanced casually before signing his name. He didn't care about the contract. As long as he had power, nothing would happen to him, even if he broke the contract. Seeing Allan signing without hesitation, Dalzaline nodded in satisfaction. He thought that he could restrict Allan by the contract and said, "From now on, you're a member of the Nostrade family. Your job is to protect Miss Neon as she is the most important person to the boss. You mustn't let any harm come to Miss Neon. I can guarantee her safety when I'm working, but I can't promise that outside of work." Allan's words made Dalzaline a little dissatisfied as he said seriously, "You have signed the contract just now. The contract mentioned that you have to stay by Miss Neon's side all the time." Allan shrugged and said, "In other words, I have to eat and drink and do other necessities while Miss is around?" "That's not necessary because you're not the only one who will be protecting Miss Neon," Dalzaline clarified. Allan nodded and didn't say anything. "On the 1st of September, there will be a 10 days auction here. You will pick Miss Neon at the airport. I will contact you via phone. This is Miss Neon's photo." After taking the phone number and photo, Allan smiled lightly. "Are you sure that it's alright for me to pick her up? Aren't you afraid that I will take her away?" "You're someone recommended by Master Zeno, and I don't think you'd do that," Dalzaline said. Allan smiled, "So Master Zeno is a guarantee of my credibility." "You can say that." Dalzaline nodded. "Since Master Zeno guarantees my credibility, why did you suggest that I come here and make me do that $hit task? I'm not an assassin hired the Nostrade family." Feeling the killing intent and the pressure coming from Allan, Dalzaline was secretly frightened as sweat covered his forehead and quickly explained, "As I said before, The rules of Nostrade family stated that everyone needed to complete a task when they are here for an interview. If you weren't good enough, we wouldn't have hired you. Allan sneered. Garadal is at the same level as your boss, Light Nostrade, and both are business rivals. The task that you had me do, if someone ordinary went there, wouldn't he be dead already? With so many bodyguards around Garay, even if you, the head of the bodyguards, went, you wouldn't have made it, right? Not to mention killing Garay. And you actually handed that mission to me, the person who came for an interview? Do you dare say that this wasn't taking advantage of me? When Allan said this, Dalzalin's expression became ugly as he couldn't find words to refute Allan's claims. Allan continued, when you saw Gary's head, you seemed quite surprised. I think you're surprised that I can kill him so quickly. You just lost a major rival, am I right? Facing Allan's questioning, Dalzalin nodded with an ugly face. You're right, Gary's death indeed means that the Nostrade family will have an easier time. Allan snorted and looked at him coldly. Sorry, I just wanted to see how good the person Master Zeno recommended. This was my selfishness. If you're unhappy, please just come at me, and don't attack the Nostrade family. Dalzalin knew very well that if Allan could kill Garay, he could also kill Light Nostrade, his boss, as easily. However, he also knew that this matter doesn't have anything to do with his boss, and he was the one to be blamed for this. To be honest, I'm really upset right now. But this time, let's forget it. Allan saw that he had some spine and decided to let him go. Since taking Garay's head meant nothing to him, to begin with, he just felt a little uncomfortable being taken advantage of. Are you really willing to let me go? Dalzalin couldn't believe this because of the killing intent. Listen, I will forgive you this time. But if you dare use me next time, you will end up like Garay, Allan said as if it was a fact. I see. There won't be another time, Dalzalin said. Allan nodded, and the killing intent disappeared completely. Then, I'm leaving first, don't forget to contact me, Allan said, then turned around and left. Watching Allan leave, Dalzalin sighed in relief. It was the first time in his life that he felt that kind of pressure. He realized that Allan was terrifying, but he also felt extremely lucky. Fortunately, Allan is now hired by the Nostrade family and not an enemy. In the afternoon of the next day, Allan went to the airport to pick up Neon. Soon after, he saw a sweet and lovely girl dressed like a princess at the airport. Allan's eyes lit up as this Neon was a little cuter than he thought. Next to Neon, there were two female attendants and a man. This man was Shashmono Tassino, one of the bodyguards of the Nostrade family. At the same time, he is also a professional hunter. When he saw Allan coming over, Tassino became vigilant and stepped forward. Who are you? I'm Allan, and I'm here to pick Miss Neon. Tassino was surprised. Captain Dalzalin sends you to protect Miss Neon? Yes. Allan nodded. Well, it turns out you're a colleague. My name is Shashmono Tassino. Tassino dropped his guard and introduced himself. Allan nodded. Miss Neon, hello, starting today, I will be your bodyguard. I will protect your safety 24/7 until you leave. Hearing Allan's words, Neon looked at Allan. Seeing his appearance, she retracted her eyes in disappointment since he had nothing to show off. She nodded her head and said, Sorry to bother you. Allan naturally noticed Neon's disappointed look. He didn't care since he was still under disguise. If he showed her his real appearance, her eyes will brighten up and shine. However, he wasn't here to pick up the girl, so it doesn't matter what she thought about him. After that, Allan took Neon to Hotel Batical and stayed in the hotel temporarily. Allan's room was next to Neon's, as he was responsible for her safety. Dalzalin arranged this. Allan didn't care much since he was here to protect her in the first place. On the other hand, the news about Garay's death spread amongst the gangs and caused quite a sensation. Garay's reputation wasn't great in the mafia circle, and most people wouldn't pursue the matter. Furthermore, it's impossible to connect anything to him. Also, Garay and all of his bodyguards were killed, which wasn't something that many people could do. The prime suspect is the Nostrade family since their rivalry is well known. Since such a great rival for the Nostrade family was removed, many families were dissatisfied with them, especially the Dahl family that suspects the Nostrade for Gary's death. As the security captain of the Nostrade family, Allan is responsible for dealing with those enemies, so he left Neon's protection completely to Allan. After all, Allan was stronger than him, which relieved him greatly. That night, Neon was attacked in a hotel by some people of the Dahl family who used their connections to find Neon and launched an attack. Fortunately, Allan noticed the danger and killed the enemies. They just broke into Neon's room, but Allan killed all of them before they could try anything. Neon panicked after seeing Allan's strength for the first time. This ordinary-looking bodyguard gave her a shock. She realized that under that ordinary look, great power was hidden. Allan didn't care much about Neon's attention, as he knew that this job was about protecting Neon without any personal feelings. On the 1st of September, the auction festival started, which attracted countless tourists. The festival will stay for 10 days, within which there are thousands of auctions all across the city. On average, there will be more than 1,000 auctions a day. Therefore, York New City will be quite lively. In addition to regular auctions, there will be auctions held by underground gangs and various organizations from across the world. Hey, take me out to play. Early in the morning, Neon, the daughter of Light Nostrade, came to Allan's room and started causing a ruckus. Miss, my job is to protect you, not be your tour guide. I don't care. Allan appointed you to protect me. So you should listen to me. Otherwise, you will lose your job. Unexpectedly, the little girl tried to threaten him. Unfortunately for her, she was threatening the wrong person as Allan wasn't afraid of losing his job. Seeing Allan's indifference, Neon was very angry. Humph, you don't want to take me? Then I will go out alone. If bad guys kidnap me, then let's see how my father fires you. Ding. Make a choice. 1. Take Neon out, do your best as a bodyguard, and protect her. Reward, silver treasure chest. 2. Wait there to be fired. Reward, bronze treasure chest. Both rewards were treasure chests, but anyone who played games before knows that silver was a level higher than bronze. For the sake of the treasure chest, Allan reluctantly said to Neon, well, I will take you out to play, but I'm only responsible for protecting you, so I won't be your guide. Hearing this, Neon nodded proudly. Allan didn't expect this young miss to be so casual about what happened last night and actually wake up early as nothing happened. Allan sighed as he didn't know whether this girl was brave or just lacked a brain. There were 2 attendants along with Neon accompanying her. These 2 were only a few years older than Neon. They were under 20 and quite outstanding. One was called Alicia, and the other one is Allan. They were similar in appearance, which meant they were twins. In Allan's eyes, those 2 were like Neon's big sisters. The twins were taking care of their wayward sister. It was that simple. Where are we going? At the entrance of the hotel, Neon crouched and asked. I already told you that I'm only here to protect you, not to be your tour guide. Don't ask me where you want to go. You should decide on that yourself, Allan said in a cold voice without any emotion. Neon didn't say anything when she saw Allan's cold face. The group of 4 started wandering around, shopping wherever they went with no apparent purpose. But this is the fun of coming to play. If they had a purpose, it wouldn't have been fun. Neon apparently found this kind of fun and took Allan all around. The streets of York New City were full of people who are here to visit the auction. The auction festival attracted a lot of tourists, and amongst the most popular locations are the major auctions. Unconsciously, Allan and his group entered a local auction. This auction was full of tourists and vendors with various commodities. Everything here can't be obtained normally. The only way to get anything is through an auction. Each product has a 24 hours auction time, during which everyone can place a bid. Of course, each bird should be higher than the previous and so on. When the 24 hours are over, The highest bidder will take the item. Unlike ordinary girls, Neon was interested in different things compared to what is provided here. She has a quirk in which would make anyone's scalp go numb. She loves to collect all kinds of human parts, from tissues to eyeballs to bones and mummies. She is what they call a human collector. Obviously, this ordinary auction market cannot satisfy Neon's quirks. However, she is a girl, and like every girl, she has a thing for shopping. Although the auction doesn't have what she wants, there are quite a few weird items. Allan, who is idle and bored, but suddenly an item grabbed his attention. Alicia, Alame, I will leave for a bit. Okay. Although both were puzzled, they still nodded. Allan went to a shop and saw hundreds of displayed items. One of those items was a painting that caught Allan's attention. On the surface, it was a portrait of a woman, but Allan noticed the aura around it when he used Gyo. There were some possibilities for an item to have an aura around them. The first possibility is the painter injected his nen into the painting or unintentionally did so. There is another possibility that this was a product of nen in itself. Allan took a look and noticed no one had made a bid on this item. In fact, in addition to the aura around the painting, Allan could feel that it might contain some secrets. Allan decisively bid for the painting. The lowest price was 5,000 jenny, but he directly bid 50,000 jenny. If no one notices this painting, then it will be his. After taking a look at the address of the shop, Allan left. Where have you been? Seeing Allan coming back, Alicia asked. I took an interest in an item. Allan didn't explain too much. After looking around, he didn't see Neon. Where is your sister? Miss and Alame went to the store in front to buy some clothes. I was afraid that you would come back and won't find us, so I stayed here waiting for you, Alicia said. Allan nodded. He didn't want to get involved with them buying clothes, so he stayed outside. Seeing that Alicia was still outside waiting, Allan, who was bored, started a conversation. Miss Alicia, are you married? Why did you ask so suddenly? Of course, I'm not. Alicia was slightly flustered from the sudden question. Obviously, it was the first time someone asked such a strange question. Allan didn't think she was that shy. After replying with a no, he asked again, do you have a target? No. Alicia shook her head lightly. Allan nodded as he knew that she was taking of Neon and didn't have the time considering that wayward miss. What about you? Seeing that Allan didn't speak after a while, Alicia asked. I'm a golden bachelor. This means he is old and still single or a rich man who wants to be married, Allan teased. Golden bachelor? Alicia said amusedly. Because of his ordinary-looking face, Alicia, though he is nearly 40 and a complete middle-aged uncle, he had already passed his golden age, so how could he be considered a golden bachelor? Allan was a little embarrassed since he forgot that he was under disguise. But if he reveals his real appearance, Alicia wouldn't laugh. Hey, you two are talking and laughing there. What did you get so familiar with already? Neon, who came out of the store, saw her personal attendant and Allan laughing and immediately assumed her old lady role. I'm sorry, miss, Alicia said apologetically. Allan shrugged and said, we are discussing the issue of like, you little kid won't understand. Who's a kid? This lady is an adult. Neon retorted violently. Are you an adult? Allan didn't believe her. Humph, of course, Neon said triumphantly. Allan looked at Neon up and down and couldn't help saying, okay, forgive my eyesight since I couldn't really tell you're an adult. What do you mean? Neon wasn't fooled. Nothing. Allan spread his hands. Humph, you obviously think that I look like a child. You think that my body is not well developed, don't you? No, absolutely not. Allan didn't want to quarrel with this wayward lady, so he glanced at Alicia next to him. Alicia nodded and changed the subject. Sister, let's go for a stroll. When I was looking around, I seemed to see a circus. Hearing this, Neon instantly looked excited. A circus? What are we waiting for then? I didn't see a circus before. Allan, on the side, couldn't help sigh. As soon as she heard about something exciting, she would turn into a child. And she still says she is an adult. Allan really couldn't believe it. "What were you talking about with sister just now?" Alicia asked curiously. "Just chatting casually." Allan glanced at Alami and couldn't help notice the difference between the twins' character. Alicia seemed easily frightened and quiet, while Alami seemed lively and open-minded. The lights on the street illuminated as night fell. Allan, who was with Neon the whole day, yawned boredly. Looking at Neon, who was full of energy, Allan admired her stamina. After having dinner at a high-class restaurant, they went to hang out in the night market. "Uncle Allan, you must be tired after spending a day with a lady today, right? Do you want to go back first?" Alicia asked. Although he felt strange being called uncle, Allan could only accept it since it was his current appearance. But Alicia is sure considerate and gentle. He was just a bodyguard, and she cares so much about him. Allan smiled and said, "It's okay. This is my job, after all." At this moment, a girl with short black hair and glasses passed by Allan. Allan felt something and instinctively looked at her. Feeling someone looking at her, the girl looked back, and their eyes met. So it turns out to be her. Allan recognized this girl. She was Shizuku Murasaki, the number 8 of the Gene Ryodan. Seeing Allan staring at her, Shizuku walked toward Allan and said, "Uncle, are you looking at me?" "No," Allan denied. "Well, you have been staring at me since earlier." Seeing Shizuku's determined eyes, Allan shrugged. "Well, I admit, I was looking just now." Allan could feel that if his answer made her feel dissatisfied, she would fight right there. Although Allan wasn't afraid, he doesn't want the trouble either. He thought for a while before saying, "Because you look just someone I know." "Really?" "Yes." "Then what's her name?" "She is called Shizuku." "Shizuku?" "Yes." "What a coincidence. I'm also called Shizuku. Am I the person that you know? But I don't know you, uncle." Faced with Shizuku's doubt, Allan smiled. "Maybe it's just the same name." "Okay then, excuse me." After saying this, Shizuku bowed and apologized before she turned and left. "Do you know that person?" Alicia came over and asked. "I don't know, let's go." Allan didn't want to say anything else. Since Shizuku was here, it can only mean that the others were here in York New City, including Krollo. Although he could guess that they are here to rob the auction, Allan didn't intend to stop them. His job is to protect Neon, and anything else has nothing to do with him. No matter how much trouble the rioting causes, he didn't want to be a busybody. Of course, if it is a conflict of interest, he will step in if necessary. At this moment, Allan received a message on his phone. It was from Dalzaline asking them to return. "Miss, we should go back," Allan said to Neon. "It's only 7 right now. I will go back at 10. Neon was being willful. "In that cause, sorry in advance." Allan didn't talk nonsense with her and directly chopped her lightly on the back of her neck. "Let's go back." Taking a look at the stunned twins, Allan directly carried Neon back toward the hotel. In the hotel, Allan gave Neon to the twin to take care of her and opened the system to get his reward. Ding. You opened a silver treasure chest. Items obtained, 10 years of life. Add 10 years of life to the person who eats it. Allan's eyes lit up as he couldn't think that he could obtain such a rare thing. A human's lifespan was only a few decades. Even in this world, a human's lifespan wouldn't exceed 200, and only a few reached over 100 years old like Mahazoldik and Netero. An increase of 10 years wasn't small. The next morning, Allan received a message from Dalzaline asking him for a meeting. Half an hour later, Allan came to a mansion. As soon as he entered, he saw a few familiar guys. They were the bodyguards hired by the Nostrade family. They were Baze, Basho, Ivy Kolv, Linson, Melody, Squala. Although it was the first time Allan saw them, he still recognized them at first sight. Allan's eyes finally fell on a young man, who he didn't see for quite some time, Kurapika. Kurapika seemed to feel Allan's gaze and raised his head to look at Allan. His eyes didn't change as he glanced coldly, then withdrew his gaze. The others did the same as they swept Allan with their gaze without paying much attention after that. After all, Allan's current look was too ordinary and average even for a middle-aged uncle. It really made them disregard him as nothing special. Allan didn't care as he found a place to sit down in the lobby. Soon after, Allan came out. "They're just like you, the bodyguards recently hired by the Nostrade family." Allan nodded and said, "You didn't call me over to introduce us, right? Because if you did, the miss would really blame me for what I did." Allan smiled awkwardly and said, "There is really something important." Everyone, including Kurapika, turned toward Allan, who started speaking. "At 9 this evening, there will be an underground auction, several which our boss likes very much, like the mummy of Princess Korko and the scarlet eyes of the Kurtak lion. Therefore, I need you to go to the auction to bid on them since each will be in a different location." "Captain, since they are organized by underground forces, why separate the location of the auction?" Basho asked. Some of the others were thinking about that curiously as well. Only Allan was smiling as he knew the reason in advance. The gangs don't want to spend so much effort either, but they are fearful of any attempted theft. Separating each piece will ensure that a huge loss is avoided even if someone attacked one of the locations. Someone would dare go against all those gangs. It would be like offending every underground gang there is. Would such a person be afraid of death? One of the bodyguards asked in disbelief. He, wouldn't dare. There are too many lunatics out there. Even if you didn't see one, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Hearing Allan's sneer, Squala, who asked, seemed uncomfortable. Squala stood up awkwardly before walking straight toward Allan and said, "What do you mean?" Allan's expression was indifferent as he didn't pay any attention to him. Squala suppressed his anger and said, "What you said just now was to refute me, nothing else. Indeed, in my eyes, you're just a frog at the bottom of a well." Allan glanced at him and sneered. "Bastard!" Squala furiously punched Allan. Allan, who was sitting down on a sofa, didn't avoid it. Boom. Even though Squala was the one to punch Allan, he was the one to cry in alarm as he clutched his arm. "What?" Squala couldn't believe that his attack had no effect on Allan, but instead, he hurt himself. The other looked at Allan in shock. Allan received a punch with his face, but the other party was the one getting hurt as if he punched steel. Strong. Kurapika's eyes flashed with surprise. "Do you still want to continue?" Allan looked at Squala with a playful expression as if he was looking at a clown. Squala clenched his arm, looking embarrassed but didn't want to back down. "It's all right, Squala. Sit down." At this moment, Allan intervened. Allan ignored Squala and looked at Allan, and said, "Go on." Allan nodded and said, "Because the auction is organized by underground gangs, the items are banned from normal auctions. Therefore, all the guests are from mafia families as well as some rich and powerful people closely related to them. This time, the Nostrade family got 9 places, which means that 3 of each can go get the items our boss wants." After a pause, Allan started dividing the group. "Basho, Squala, and Linson, you are responsible for the Scarlet Eye. Melody, and Kurapika, you're going for the solid gold execution sword. Allan, you go for the mummy." Allan looked at Allan as if asking if he was okay with it. Allan looked at him and said, "My duty is to protect Miss Neon, which is out of scope for me to participate in the auction." "Okay, course I know, that's why you're bringing Miss Neon with you to the auction. In that way, you will protect Miss Neon," Allan said seriously. "You just said that the auction is dangerous, so why make Miss Neon taking that risk? Just make someone else do it," Allan said. Allan put a hand on his forehead and sighed. "We also don't want Miss to participate in that auction, but the boss promised her that he would let her participate. If we don't let her participate, the boss will have a huge headache over this." To make it easier to understand, Boss's current position is due to Miss Neon's ability to predict the future, and if Miss Neon is angry because of this, the boss will be in trouble. Allan shrugged and stopped asking. Well, I will take Miss Neon to attend the auction then. Please make sure you protect her, Allan said. Of course, Allan promised. Allan nodded and looked at the other two and said, Base, IVN Kalv, you are to assist and follow Allan's commands. When the auction starts, you will mix with the crowd and pay attention to the situation and report to Allan at any time. If he is a handsome guy, I won't mind listening to him, but it's not possible, Baze said. Baze was a beautiful woman and charming, and it's hard to imagine she is a bodyguard. Baze, this isn't a suggestion. Since you're a member of the Nostrade family, then you will obey orders. Allan is stronger than any of you, so you will listen to his orders. Are we clear? Damn it, okay. Baze glared at Allan uncomfortably. Although she wasn't convinced, the incident with Squala made her realize that Allan wasn't a simple person. Allan ignored the angry woman. As for the other person, IVN Kalv, he seemed professional and obeyed orders without asking too much. Such a person is the most suitable for the bodyguard job. Okay, now that the allocation is complete, do you have any questions? Allan asked. I have, Kurapika said. What is it? Allan asked. I want to change the group to be on the Scarlet Eye auction, Kurapika said coldly. Facing Kurapika's proposed change of group, Allan asked, I need a reason. There is no reason. Just let me change groups, Kurapika said in his cold attitude but extremely determined tone. For a while, no one spoke, waiting for the decision, and it was apparent that Allan was displeased with Kurapika's attitude. The others looked at Kurapika in confusion as they had no idea why he was determined to change groups. Only one person knew why, and that person is Allan. He knew that Kurapika was from the Kurta clan, and the Scarlet Eye is something from his clan. A few years ago, the Kurta clan was slaughtered overnight, and all of their eyes were gouged out. Kurapika had two goals. The first is to find the Scarlet Eyes, and the other is to kill the killer of his family, the Gene Ryodan. Therefore, whether Allan agreed or not, Kurapika will go. Captain, I think you should agree. I think Kurapika has his reasons, Allan suddenly said as he wanted to help Kurapika. Hearing this, Allan was amazed as he didn't think that Allan would help Kurapika, so he finally nodded. Well, Kurapika and Melody would go for the Scarlet Eye, and Basho and the others go for the other item. Is there any problem? Basho said that there isn't, along with the other two. Kurapika said, thank you. You must be careful when you go to the auction tonight. Yesterday, a group of people ransacked an underground auction. The affected parties directly sent over 100 people in pursuit, but all of them were killed. Moreover, all of the items that were stolen caused heavy losses, so tonight, that group will continue with their actions. We can't rule out the possibility that one of the auctions tonight will be a target. That's why the organizers of the auctions strengthen their defenses, but we can't rule out the possibility of another attack. All of you must be careful. Facing Allan's reminder, all of them nodded. Allan narrowed his eyes. He thought about the group of lunatics Allan mentioned, which should be the Gene Ryodan. If they were really to attack the auction tonight, then without a doubt, Allan will encounter them. Allan didn't want to talk with them, but if they offend him, he will take action. Captain, you didn't mention me. What do I do? Squala suddenly asked. Sorry, I forgot about you, Allan said honestly. Everyone laughed at Allan's straightforward answer. On the other hand, Squala seemed embarrassed as he didn't expect himself to be forgotten like that. Well, you can help Allan and listen to his orders. Allan thought for a bit. Okay, then. Squala looked at Allan and agreed. Allan said, I still have something to do. I will go ahead and leave you to your jobs. After Allan left, Basho and his team, along with Kurapika and Melody, left. All those left were IVN Kalv, Squala, Allan, and Baze. At this moment, Baze stood up and went toward Allan. She leaned down and said, "There is still a while before the auction starts. Would you like to relax, acting captain?" With this kind of suggestive tone, Squala and Ivankov could help to gulp. After all, Baze was indeed charming, and she was using that charm against Allan. Most people wouldn't have the ability to refuse her request. However, Allan was indifferent. "You're not qualified," Allan replied lightly. "What did you say?" Allan's words made Baze flushed in anger. "Your appearance is not enough to move my heart," Allan said. He, is that so?" Baze suppressed her anger and sneered. Without waiting for Allan to answer, she suddenly kissed Allan. Now you are captured by me. Anyone I kiss will become my servant and obey all of my commands." "Yes, then you can try to order me now." Allan smiled contemptuously. "I want you to kneel down," Baze immediately said. Baze's Nen ability is Instant Lover, an ability that manipulates anyone who she kisses for 180 minutes, making the target almost a slave to her. However, when she gave Allan an order to kneel, Allan was still sitting on the sofa and looking at her indifferently. Baze was surprised and asked, "How is that possible? Why aren't you affected?" "No, you have indeed used your ability on me, but your ability isn't enough to affect me," Allan said lightly. "What?" "In other words, my willpower is enough to keep me unaffected by your control." Hearing this, Baze looked at him in awe. This is the first time she encountered something like this. The first time a man wasn't affected by her Instant Lover ability. "Good, you're good," Baze said as she looked at Allan. A man who has such strong willpower was definitively attractive to her. However, Allan didn't react to her and stood up. "Get ready, and we're going back to the hotel before taking Miss Neon to the auction in the evening." After this, Allan looked coldly at Squala and said, "Squala, you're responsible for driving us and picking us up. You're a full-time driver." "That's it?" Squala asked as he felt that his job was too simple. "Why, you don't like it?" Allan sneered, patted his shoulder, and said, "If you don't want it, you can leave at any time, but once you do, you're fired." Squala thought for a bit, then nodded. "Okay, I will be the driver." Getting a salary of a bodyguard and working as a driver made Squala feel aggrieved, but he had no choice in this matter. The group returned to the hotel, and Allan told Neon about the auction tonight, which made her like a child from excitement. As night fell, each auction location was filled with gangs from all over the world. They were wearing black suits, leather shoes, and black sunglasses. All of them came from a major family or organization without exception. The gangs were accustomed to such a high-profile gathering since gangs were legal in the Hunter x Hunter world. The local laws have no right to arrest them. And they have the qualification to hold guns and use them as well. Of course, because they were legal groups, the gangs had to pay very high taxes to the government. According to statistics, every year, Mafia worldwide pays more than 10 trillion jenny as taxes. The taxes were equivalent to an annual GDP, gross domestic product, of an entire country, and for this reason, the gangs were considered legal. It is a kind of cooperation between the government and the gangs. At this moment, the 3 auction sites were filled to the brim. The security was tight since anyone unrelated to this event will be chased away, and no one can get through till the auction ends. Only those with the invitation cards can pass. Moreover, after passing the checkpoint, anyone who had a weapon can't pass until he passes his weapons to the security. If anyone dared to attack the auction, almost all gangs had an agreement to retaliate together. 95% of these gangs are under the 10 Dons. The 10 Dons are the highest leaders of the mafia in the world, and they control thousands of men in mafia families. And they are also the organizers of the underground auction. Attacking the auction is tantamount to offending the 10 Dons. It can be said as long as someone doesn't have brain damage or has absolute confidence in his strength, he wouldn't dare to attack the auctions. But do such people exist in the world? The answer is certainly. And it isn't just 1 2, but many. to such people, be it the mafia or the tendons, they are nothing but ants. The scenery tonight is beautiful. At the top of a building, a young man with a cross necklace and blue gem earrings looked at the mafia down inside the auction building with a smile. This person is Krilo, the leader of the Gane Ryodan. Krilo took out his cell phone and notified the others. The mafia families are all gathered here. When the auction starts, you can take everything and everyone. No need to hold back, have fun. The spiders, under Krilo's command, started acting. On the other side, Allan has left the hotel with Neon and the others to participate in the auction. Squala was in charge of driving while Allan sat beside him. Neon sat in the back with Baze and Ivankov. Tonight's mission was to help Allan protect Neon's safety. Although they are not professional bodyguards, they are capable people, and they are much better than ordinary bodyguards in terms of skills. With the invitation card of the Nostrade family, the group passed successfully and entered the auction. In addition to the numerous mafia heads who are here to participate in the auction, many security companies are deployed in the building. The security were members of the mafia here to protect the prominent figures gathering for the auction and make sure no problem occurs here. After entering the auction building, Allan and the others went to the banquet hall on the 33rd floor, accommodating up to 500 people. About 9 in the evening, all guests entered the auction room. Allan and Neon sat in the last few seats near the door. The reason was simple: if someone attacks the auction, they could escape as soon as possible. Of course, Allan wasn't worried about himself but about Neon, so he needed to be cautious. Soon after, the host appeared on the stage, and after a long speech, the auction officially started. Several staff members pushed the auctioned items backstage and entered the stage to show the items to the guests. The host started introducing those items after clearing his throat. Suddenly, two figures walked out of the audience, one big and one small, as they made their way to the stage. Without waiting for the host to speak, and the staff to react, the short man in a suit suddenly launched an attack quickly. A cold light flashed, and the host and the staff on the stage fell one after the other with blood pouring around their necks. This happened too quickly that no one expected it, except Allan. When the two walked in, Allan knew both of them. One was Phaeton Porter, and the other was Franklin Bordeaux from the Gane Ryodan. Allan wasn't surprised that they are here. On the stage, after the host and the staff were killed, Phaeton said, "Do it. Enemies are attacking. Protect the leaders." At the same time, many security personnel hiding in the audience reacted and blocking in front of the leaders and prepared to shoot at the two. Although they were only two of them, they killed so many staff and the host too quickly, which means they aren't ordinary people. However, it was too late. Franklin sneered and said, "Give it all you've got before you die, guys." When his voice fell, he activated his Nen ability, double machine gun. Bang! 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 A large number of bullets shot out from Franklin's hands that contained amazing power, shooting indiscriminately at the audience below the stage. The Nen bullets were stronger than normal ones and could penetrate almost anything. Almost everyone was turned into a living target below the stage. Blood flowed like rivers all over the floor. Nearly 500 persons died in under 10 seconds, and almost no one survived. The scene was full of corpses with at least 3 holes each. It's really boring. Those guys are simply too vulnerable, and the so-called mafia families are nothing. Franklin stopped his attack and looked at the scene he caused with disdain. He didn't feel anything even after killing all those people. "Oh? Franklin, it seems there are still a few fishes who slipped through the net." Phaeton suddenly noticed a person standing in the last row of the auditorium. At this time, this person was looking at Franklin and Phaeton indifferently. Allan was standing in front of Neon, who hid behind him and was confused as she didn't know what's going on. Standing next to Neon were Baze and Ivankov with furrowed brows. When the two saw the corpses on the ground, they couldn't help take a deep breath. They barely saw what happened right now, but when they recovered, all the people there were killed except a few of them. It was the first time they encountered such a horrible thing, and they were at a loss for a while. Unexpectedly, there are 4 still alive under my double machine gun. It seems that I was careless. Franklin, don't worry about it. Just now, when you launched your bullets, that person seemed to make a shield to block your attack, so he didn't die, Phaeton said. So that's how it is. Franklin nodded and then looked at Allan and the others. So, they're like us, capable of using Nen? Probably, Phaeton answered. Funny being able to find someone like that here. Franklin grinned and sneered. Just now, you said you didn't have fun, and you can have your fun with them, Phaeton said. Of course, I will kill them all. When their voice fell, Franklin once again using his double machine gun and rained bullets at Allan and the others. No, run away. Baze's expression changed along with Ivankov. Calm down. I will deal with it. Facing Franklin's attack, Allan was calm, as if he didn't take them seriously. He raised his right hand, and in an instant, a thick hard ice wall condensed in front of him. Bang! 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 As the Nen bullets hit the wall, they made a muffled noise before dying down. After 10 seconds of shooting, Franklin stopped to see a fist-sized dimple on the ice wall. Although the bullets had a strong penetrative power, Allan's ice wall was harder than they thought. You can block my attack? Franklin couldn't believe this. It doesn't look like he made an effort doing it. That guy is strong. Phaeton saw this and stared coldly at Allan. Too strong. He actually blocked everything. Ivankov saw Allan's ice wall and was surprised by Allan's strength. As a bodyguard, he realized that Allan's strength exceeded his imagination. Allan, is this your Nen ability? Baze couldn't help asking Allan with eyes full of awe. Allan nodded without explaining much, then said, you two can stay with the young lady, and I will deal with the rest. Allan's tone was calm but didn't leave any room for discussion. Baze and Ivankov nodded obediently and guarded Neon behind them. If Allan didn't take action just now, they would have joined the corpses on the floor already. So, Allan wasn't just their savior but their current protector as well. On the auction stage, both Franklin and Phaeton turned their attention toward Allan. They noticed that Allan was the most powerful of these people. Allan looked at them and said, I know you guys are eyeing this auction. Franklin and Phaeton looked at each other after hearing Allan's words. Who are you? Franklin asked. It doesn't matter. What's important right now is giving me the mummy of the princess. You can take the rest of the items. Allan's words made Franklin and Phaeton stunned. His tone made them a little uncomfortable. Phaeton said with a cold expression, there is indeed a mummy from the items we took. Allan said, hand over the mummy, and for the sake of Krillow's face, I can leave you to go even though you attacked me just now. Franklin looked at Phaeton and said, he just called the chief's name, right? Well, it looks like he knows Chief. Phaeton nodded. So, he knows we're from the Raiden? Franklin asked. It seems so, Phaeton said coldly. Who are you? Why do you know who we are? Phaeton stared sharply at Allan, trying to see something in his expression. However, he remained expressionless and without any change. Franklin, on the side, said to Phaeton, no matter who he is, since he is here today, then he must die. This is also a task assigned to us by Chief. No one gets out alive from here. Phaeton nodded and stopped asking. He could tell from Allan's expression that even if he asked, the other party wouldn't answer. It's a pity if you have some friends with our chief, we may have let you go, but you don't have that opportunity anymore, Phaeton said with a sneer. At the back of the auditorium, Allan looked at Phaeton and Franklin indifferently. At the same time, the system's voice rang in his head. Ding. You are being attacked by 2 members of the Gene Raiden. Please make a choice. 1. Take action, kill Phaeton and Franklin. Reward, swordsmanship level 7. 2. Run away with Neon. Reward, increase Nen by 3,000 points. Without a second to think, Allan chose the first option. It didn't matter how powerful the level 7 swordsmanship is, even if the system didn't give him any options, he would decide to kill both of them. Because they really angered him right now. A strong killing intent appeared in Allan's eyes as he spoke to Phaeton and Franklin up the stage in a cold tone. You two are going to die here today, and even if Krilo came, he wouldn't be able to save you. Hearing this, Phaeton sneered in disdain. Huh, arrogant words, do you have the ability? Franklin's voice echoed as well. I hope you have the strength to back up your words. Bragging? Humph, if I have the strength to back my words, or not. You will know shortly. Allan's face was indifferent as his killing intent washed over the place. At this moment, Neon, Base, and IVN Call felt the killing intent and trembled. Fortunately, it wasn't directed at them, or else they would have fainted. Franklin and Phaeton felt the killing intent and couldn't help the surprise. What a strong killing intent, this guy. At this time, Franklin said, Phaeton, I will deal with this guy. Phaeton nodded and said, okay, if he kills you, I will get revenge for you. Although both of them knew from the killing intent that Allan wasn't ordinary, both of them were too arrogant to gang upon him. What? I beat him down. Franklin directly activated his double machine gun and overcharged it with Nen, shooting huge strong bullets at Allan like Gatling. The power behind the Nen bullets was at least twice as strong as the previous ones. Facing the Nen bullets, Allan waved his hand and condensed an ice wall like before, but since the bullets were stronger, the wall seemed about to break after a short while. Allan directly changed tactics and condensed his own ice bullets, and shot them to the Nen bullets. After the collision, the Nen bullets were completely blocked, which made Franklin shout and rush decisively. At the same time, Allan stopped his ice bullets and greeted him. Boom. The collision between the two made the entire hall tremble. In addition to powerful long-range attacks, Franklin melee combat was top-notch as well. Although he is an emitter, his power doesn't lose to an enhancer. In the Ryodan, wrist strength is ranked in the top 3. A single punch can pack up tons of power and can easily break boulders and bend metal. However, when he fought Allan, both he and Phaeton were surprised that Allan didn't lose in terms of strength. At this moment, Allan was covering his arms with armament hockey, making them black obsidian in color. With both hockey and Nen covering his fists, Allan's strength doubled as he landed a punch and sent Franklin crushing all the way through the hall. Seeing this, Phaeton, who was standing on the auction stage, jumped up, and his expression turned even more serious. Allan's power exceeded his expectations. Because even Uvagan, who is an enhancer, can't send Franklin flying with a punch as Allan did. Phaeton arrived in the deep pit and asked, "You want to switch out? The game just started. I'm just warming up." Franklin jumped out angrily. He can't remember the last person who could punch him that hard. In his eyes, Allan was a powerful opponent he hasn't encountered in a long time. At this time, his eyes were burning for a good fight and killing intent. Facing Franklin's fighting spirit, Allan's face remained cold. Apart from his killing intent, he wasn't that excited about the fight because, to him, Franklin was just a prey, not an opponent. Moreover, with the brief fight with Franklin, Allan already gauged his strength and didn't feel threatened even a bit. Facing Franklin, Allan said coldly, "I will accept your head now, Franklin. 1 minute, within 1 minute, I will kill you, Franklin. So, use your full power, or you won't get a chance later." Humph, keep bragging. Allan's tone had absolute confidence in his words, which made Franklin quite angry. He was furious as he roared like a beast. The moment he was angered, his nen exploded out of his body. Franklin released all of his nen so he can kill Allan, who was arrogant and belittled him. Allan didn't move at the time, just looked at Franklin, amused. "No matter how strong you are, you will die soon." That was the kind of words Allan's gaze said at Franklin. Base, who was hiding in the last row of the auditorium, was greatly surprised by Franklin's power. Only now did they understand how terrifying the person who attacked the auction was. Although they were capable, they understood that they weren't at the same level. At most, they were C rank while Franklin was an A rank elite. If Allan wasn't here, then all of them would have died with bullet holes all over their bodies. Allan, who was facing Franklin, was also an A rank elite in their eyes. Franklin continued to exude nen from his body amazingly. Allan looked at him and said, "That's the way, give your full power, or you will have regrets later when you die, Franklin." Seeing the nen around Franklin's body, Allan was slightly interested. At Allan's current level, he no longer felt any thrill from a fight with small fries. Only when someone uses his full strength can he feel satisfied after killing them. It wasn't that Allan was a psychopath or anything. It's just when someone like the members Ryodan, who kill without purpose or goal, are facing him, he would enjoy toying with them, making them struggle with everything they had, only to realize that in the end, everything they had done was in vain. 2. Although Allan killed many, he either killed as a job, like Gary, or because those people had done something to him. He never killed someone just for the joy of it, like the Ryodan is doing. At the moment, after getting used to all the nen he released, Franklin pointed at Allan with both fingers and said, "Double machine gun, strongest firepower." The difference between this and the previous attacks is the bullet speed and power. Allan responded by waving his hand and forming 5 ice walls blocking in front of him. The bullets hit the ice walls. If anyone heard the sound produced, they would think that it was a battlefield with hundreds of soldiers firing at each other. After some time, the first ice wall shattered, then the second wall. "Break for me." Franklin's veins bulged on his forehead as he condensed all of his nen on his finger while launching even more bullets. As an emitter, the bullets he releases remain at 100% power even after moving a great distance away from him. After a while, the third wall couldn't withstand the attacks and shattered. After breaking the third wall, Franklin didn't stop. He vowed to break all 5 walls made by Allan and turn him into a sieve. With this obsession, Franklin continued to use his full power and finally broke the 4th wall, then the 5th. Franklin's obsession with breaking the ice walls seemed to increase his nen's power, and he finally succeeded. Franklin, who achieves his goal of breaking the ice wall, consumed at least 70 or 80% of his nen, leaving him with 20 or 30%. At this moment, he was panting hard, looking ahead while his arms were still in the double machine gun mode, but without firing any bullets because he was surprised to find that Allan unexpectedly disappeared. Where is he? Has he been killed by the previous firepower? Franklin looked around with confusion. "Be careful, Franklin, above you," Phaeton shouted a warning. "What? Above?" An ice ball like a meteorite was falling from above, intending to smash Franklin to death. When he saw this, Franklin raised his hands and fired as much as he can to save himself. Surprisingly, the ice ball couldn't withstand the bullets and shattered. Franklin heaved a sigh of relief as he was fortunate to respond on time. Otherwise, he would have died under that ice ball. However, at this moment, he felt like death was approaching him quickly. Franklin seemed to hear birds sing in his ear, but unfortunately for him, they weren't birds but death itself. Suddenly, a face appeared in front of him, and he could have sworn it was the face of a Grim Reaper. Ugh! Something sharp pierced his chest, and he felt a rusty taste in his throat before he spat a mouthful of blood. He looked at Allan's face in front of him before his gaze shifted downward and finally saw Allan's right hand piercing through his chest. Dazzling blue electric light danced in Allan's hand as Franklin felt his body paralyzed, and his soul was quickly slipping away from his body. The Chidori had a strong penetration power, and even Ken can't block it. Allan did just that, and he took advantage of Chidori's characteristics to bypass Franklin's defense. Franklin looked at Allan's hand inserted in his chest and felt numb all over, and knew that he was about to die. Puff! When Allan pulled his hand from Franklin's chest, blood gushed forward and stained Franklin's body red. Franklin took 2 steps back and fell on his knees. He supported his body with his left hand and covered his chest with his right hand but couldn't stop the blood from slipping through his fingers. A large hole was apparent on his back, and blood flowed from the front of the back while his complexion turned pale as he was losing consciousness. "Your body is strong, and I think that I will keep it." While talking, a sword appeared in Allan's hand. It wasn't Shusui but Yatsufusa. Being a cursed sword, anyone killed by it will become a puppet for the user to command. Franklin was a top-notch emitter, and he thought that it would be a shame to let him die like this. So, Allan decided to use Yatsufusa to turn him into a puppet. And since he killed Franklin now, he is officially an enemy of the Gene Ryodan, so it's inevitable that he will fight others. Therefore, he will take advantage of the opportunity to turn Franklin into a puppet along with anyone from the Ryodan that can be useful. In the long run, those powerful puppets would come in handy to deal with strong foes. Although with his current power, Allan didn't need so much to deal with the Gene Ryodan, he didn't have to deal with them himself when the time comes. At this moment, Allan felt a strong killing intent rushing at him. "Humph, you finally want to join the fund." Allan looked and saw Phaeton rushing over at quickly. In fact, Allan always paid attention to Phaeton when he was fighting Franklin and didn't let him slip from his perception at all. The Ryodan members were confident in their strength, and they usually rushed head-on with their enemies. The only exception was Phaeton, who was more of an assassin than a thief. In other words, if Allan had any flaws in the battle with Franklin, or if Phaeton realized that Franklin could be in danger, he would most likely take action. Seeing that Franklin's life was hanging by a thread, Phaeton couldn't bear standing aside and took action. However, Phaeton's speed wasn't faster than Allan's sword. Allan decided to kill Franklin here, and even Kurlo won't be able to stop him if he wanted. Die. Allan didn't hesitate and pierced Franklin's throat with Yatsufusa. When Franklin come to, he saw a sword piercing his throat. Just as Allan killed Franklin, a small figure rushed at Allan as fast as it could. Phaeton was holding an umbrella in his hand, and the back of the umbrella was printed in a dark red skull pattern. At this moment, Phaeton was using the umbrella-like sharp sword as he aimed at Allan's heart. Allan already saw everything with his observation haki and didn't panic. Instead, he just moved slightly to the side and avoided Phaeton's surprise attack. At the same time, Allan took out Yatsufusa from Franklin's neck and slashed at Phaeton without hesitation. Seeing this, Phaeton turned his umbrella and tried to block. The collision made a dull sound as Phaeton was directly sent away by Allan's slash, while Franklin, who lost the support from the sword in his throat, fell down dead. Allan waved his sword and cleaned the blood on it before looking at Phaeton indifferently. He didn't feel accomplished by killing Franklin. Not even a pang of slight guilt like when he killed Gary's lover. It wasn't because he didn't have any humanity left in him, but because he felt that Franklin deserved death. In fact, he felt that the scum from Meteor City deserved nothing less. Unlike Allan, Phaeton looked at Franklin's corpse. His expression changed for the first time as he frowned. The current situation was beyond his expectation. He thought that with Franklin's power, Allan would die in the end, or even if he was defeated, he could escape. But he didn't expect Franklin to lose and die at Allan's hand while he couldn't even intervene and save him. At this moment, Phaeton, who didn't have any emotions usually, felt grief for the first time from his companion dying. "Rest in peace, Franklin. I will avenge you," Phaeton said in a cold voice. His eyes were fixed on Allan, and his aura exploded out of his body in waves accompanied by a strong killing intent. "I thought that even if your partner died, you would be indifferent. It seems that I was wrong. I didn't think you will grieve his death." While talking, Allan waved Yatsufusa in his hand and continued, "Don't worry, you will meet Franklin soon, and will even make you a puppet along with him. I will make you pay for killing him." As soon as he said this, Phaeton disappeared. However, Allan knew where he was. Using his observation haki, he saw Phaeton rushing at him at an extremely fast speed. The 10 meters between them were covered in a blink of an eye. Allan wasn't surprised by Phaeton's speed because he had known that he was fast and maybe the fastest in the Ryodan. The short figure appeared in front of Allan while his killing intent filled the place. Phaeton waved his umbrella at Allan's throat. You want to use a sword to slash my throat the same way I killed Franklin? I don't think you can do that. Allan sneered. He already predicted the attack's trajectory and avoided it easily. Phaeton's eyes didn't falter as he reacted to Allan's dodge, and his umbrella once again moved toward Allan. Quick reaction. Seeing Phaeton react to his dodge and aim and attack quickly, Allan commented before he sneered and waved Yatsufusa. Yatsufusa collided with Phaeton's umbrella, producing a few sparks. Phaeton's umbrella was something conjured with Nen, so it can withstand a powerful attack from Yatsufusa and not break. You can say that Phaeton's umbrella was a very good weapon. In addition to that, inside the umbrella was a rapier, which Phaeton currently unsheathed and slashed at Allan. Seeing an attack coming from his blind spot, Allan didn't panic. Instead, he turned around and easily blocked it. Then he waved his hand, forming a few icicles that slammed into Phaeton. Phaeton wasn't careless, as he retreated sharply and blocked the icicle with his sword. Ice storm. With a wave of his hand, Allan produced an extremely cold air current that turned into a storm. Phaeton decided to dodge and didn't want to touch the storm. You're quick to flee, but didn't you say you'd avenge Franklin? Facing Allan's sneer, Phaeton couldn't tolerate it and stopped dodging and stared at Allan. Allan also stopped his ice fruit ability and looked at Phaeton provocatively. I don't even need my ice ability to deal with you. What are you best at, swordsmanship? I will fight you in swordsmanship. Hearing this, Phaeton said coldly, this is your choice. Allan's ability to create ice on a whim was tricky, so when he heard that Allan wouldn't use it and instead will fight using swordsmanship, he sneered. Because in the Ryodan, in addition to speed, his swordsmanship was one of the best. Except for Nobunaga, only a few people could actually compete against him in swordsmanship. Phaeton was extremely confident in this battle because he didn't think that Allan stood a chance against him in swordsmanship. Listen well, and this sword here is called Yatsufusa, which I will use to kill you and turn you into a puppet. Allan said as he waved Yatsufusa. Although Allan knew it was better for him to fight with Shusui, he still decided to use Yatsufusa in the end, simply because he wanted Phaeton to become a puppet. Phaeton coldly said, will turn me into a puppet? Ha ha ha, we will see in the end. The next moment, Phaeton disappeared as he rushed at Allan again. Allan didn't avoid but waved his Yatsufusa instead. Since it's a swordsmanship fight, the two can only fight head-on. For the two of them, the end won't be decided by simply landing a blow or admitting defeat, but by one of them dying. In the auction hall, two figures appeared from time to time in a burst of speed as shockwaves and sparks from the sword's collision appeared along with them. The more Phaeton fought, the more solemn he became. He really didn't expect Allan would be such a strong swordsman. He was surprised because currently, Phaeton could tell that Allan's swordsmanship wasn't inferior to his own. Phaeton became surprised at first, but he became excited in the end. To meet such a strong opponent that equaled himself in the way of the sword made him want to fight more. This drove Phaeton to fight even harder and faster. Fighting me with speed? Well, let's see how the fastest member of the Ryodan deals with speed. Don't disappoint me. Saru. Allan's figure disappeared. Yes, it looked like he completely disappeared. Phaeton could see him moving extremely fast and wasn't surprised by it because when Allan was fighting Franklin, he noticed Allan's speed. Too slow, you're too slow. If you're this slow, then why are we still fighting? Facing Allan's taunt, Phaeton became furious. Even though he always appeared calm and quiet, he was short-tempered and hot-headed. He couldn't tolerate Allan's taunting him as if he was playing with him. Faster? Then I will show you speed. Phaeton decisively used his Nen, and his speed increased. Well, what about now? Am I too fast that you can keep up? Phaeton sneered at Allan, wanting to return the taunt. Barely qualified, Allan said calmly. Hearing this, Phaeton coldly said, you mean you're faster than me? Of course. Allan nodded. While they were talking, they already exchanged hundreds of moves. They were too fast that no ordinary person could see them. Only a master can see them, and after fighting for a while, Allan felt a little tired. He already knew everything about Phaeton's moves and wanted to end the battle already. Using observation hockey to predict Phaeton's movement, Allan used Saru, and with a drawing posture, Iaido, he slashed at Phaeton. Phaeton felt a sense of dread approaching him and instinctively stepped back. However, he was a little step slower, and Allan's sword slashed him. Fortunately, he avoided most of the slash, but a wound larger than 10 centimeters had already appeared on his body. Allan's strike broke through his defense and severely wounded him. Phaeton clutched his wound, and his eyes stared coldly and viciously at Allan. He didn't remember the last time that he was actually injured, and now he received such a large wound. This meant that he lost to Allan in swordsmanship and speed. At the same time, he felt that this was unacceptable. He was strong and wasn't injured for so long, and he had confidence in his strength. When this confidence was broken, he lost his mind to madness and anger. At this moment, Phaeton stared at Allan, and a dark purple aura emerged around his body. Allan narrowed his eyes when he saw the unidentified Nen. Obviously, Phaeton decided to use a big move. However, Allan didn't make a move to interrupt this power accumulation. Instead, he looked at him indifferently and waited. Allan knew about Phaeton's ability and had time to interrupt what he's doing, but he didn't. On one hand, being strong made him want to look down on those who thought that they were strong and used that strength foolishly. Killing indiscriminately without a goal or purpose to feel strong was just psychopathic. On the other hand, he wanted to see how powerful Phaeton's ultimate ability is. As the dark aura continued to gush out of Phaeton, a weird costume suddenly appeared around him instead of what he normally wore. This costume was produced by Phaeton's Nen and could defend against high temperatures. The fireproof suit enveloped his body, only leaving a small gap for his eyes. Allan could the power gushing out of Phaeton, but his expression didn't change. He looked at Phaeton as if telling him to hurry and do whatever he wanted to do so he can kill him. Phaeton saw this and clenched his teeth and said, "You will regret waiting for me." As he said this, the Nen in his body skyrocketed again and condensed into a ball in front of him before he let it go, and it started to fly above his head. When this ball flew into the air, it suddenly expanded violently and turned into a huge fireball in an instant. From a distance, it looked like a sun emitting extreme heat. This huge fireball is called Rising Sun, and it can emit high temperatures, burning anything close to death. The special thing about this is the heavier Phaeton was wounded, the stronger the fireball is and the higher the temperature. Previously, he was wounded by Allan's slash, and although it wasn't a serious injury, it wasn't light either. Therefore, the blazing sun was releasing a terrifying heat. The hall was like an oven. The air moisture disappeared quickly. Allan remembered that Phaeton used this against one of the leaders of the Chimera Ants. As the heat wave swept by, the hundreds of corpses that Franklin killed previously burned to ashes. Phaeton, who was under the sun, was unaffected. This was because of his fireproof suit that can block the heat. Except for him, everything else can burn. Now, you can't escape, and you will burn by the scorching sun, Phaeton sneered as he thought that Allan would be burned to a crisp. However, in the next second, his sneer disappeared as he saw Allan calmly raise his hand. Freeze. 1. With Allan as the center, a blast of cold air swept around. The cold air collided with the heat and caused a strong evaporation effect, splitting the scene into two. On one side was Phaeton's purgatory, and on the other side was Allan's ice. Seeing this, Phaeton's face became extremely ugly with anger that he couldn't speak. He thought that the temperature would turn Allan to ashes, but he didn't expect that the latter would be immune to the high temperature and could even fight it off with his ice. Allan sneered as he saw Phaeton's face. "Didn't you want me to burn? It's a pity that the high temperature from your fireball can't melt my ice." When his voice fell, Allan raised his hand and aimed at the fireball in the air. Ice Age. In an instant, cold air coursed from Allan's hand, freezing the fireball in midair, turning it into a huge ice ball. Then it fell with a bang. It burst open and shattered on the ground. Although the temperature of this miniature sun was quite high, it's a pity that Allan had the ice fruit. Allan's ice fruit is a disaster-level fruit that, at the full potential, it can freeze the entire Earth. This little son of Phaeton can only burn things within a few kilometers at best. Okay, this hunting game is almost over, but I will let you fight your friend. With that, Allan pulled out Yatsufusa and aimed at Franklin. In the next second, Franklin suddenly opened his eyes and got up. He stood blankly in front of Allan, with gray pupils. He was no longer living and was just a puppet. What the hell did you do to Franklin? Seeing Franklin standing up, Phaeton looked in surprise. At the same time, he felt that something was wrong. He was certain that Franklin was killed by Allan just now, but here he is, standing up and without the familiar aura around him. This was different from the Franklin that he knew. Could it be that sword? The puppet you talked about earlier is this? Phaeton thought suddenly. Allan said before that he would use his sword to turn Franklin into a puppet. Does that sword have an ability to kill someone and turn them into a puppet to be manipulated? Phaeton asked in a deep voice. Allan nodded and smiled. Yes, this sword does have such an ability. You will try that effect now. Franklin, go and kill your companion Phaeton. Allan held Yatsufusa in his hand and said. Hearing the order, Franklin directly attacks Phaeton with his double machine gun. A large number of bullets rained on Phaeton directly. Phaeton instantly summoned his umbrella and opened it to block the bullets while dodging when he can. Seeing Franklin and Phaeton fighting, Allan smiled. Yatsufusa's manipulation was very good. Although Franklin is just a puppet, his strength remained the same. Even his nen was the same, and only someone as strong as he was before can defeat him. Right now, Phaeton was forced to evade and search for an opportunity to strike back. He quickly unsheathed his sword and stabbed Franklin. However, the sword didn't have any effect on Franklin, and he finally understood that Franklin was already dead, so such a strong attack was of no use at all. He could only deal with Franklin by destroying his body or cutting off his head. Or else Franklin will continue fighting without stopping. Realizing this, Phaeton changed his attack method and planned on cutting down Phaeton's head. Allan noticed this and could only commend him on his cleverness. This made Allan determined to turn Phaeton into a puppet. Yatsufusa can manipulate up to 8 puppets, and right now, he had Franklin and planned on adding Phaeton, and that would be more than enough for most of the situations. When Phaeton was waiting for an opportunity to cut Franklin's head, Allan made his move. He flashed and appeared behind Phaeton, who was focused on Franklin. Phaeton was worthy of being an elite, as even though he didn't see Allan, he felt his presence behind him. However, it was too late. Go to hell. A cold light flashed in Phaeton's eyes as Yatsufusa's blade precisely cut into his heart. After stabbing him, Allan directly twisted his hand again, completely shattering his heart and turning him into a lifeless corpse. From the moment he moved to the moment Phaeton died, it only took 2 seconds, and Phaeton couldn't even struggle before he died. Looking at Phaeton's corpse, Allan said, "Get up." Phaeton suddenly opened his eyes and stood in front of Allan. Like Franklin, Phaeton's eyes were gray as he lost his humanity and turned into a puppet. He now planned to use Yatsufusa to build a puppet organization. Yatsufusa can hold 8 people at the same time, and now he has 2, and only 6 more remained. He didn't decide who the other 6 will be because even if he encounters someone strong, he won't just go kill them to turn them into puppets. Now that Phaeton and Franklin are dead, Allan believed that the Raiden would seek him out for revenge. If this developed to that point, Allan wouldn't mind killing them and turning them into his own puppet, and form a puppet Raiden.